Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us via live stream for our Fbaa R U Ok Day event for 2021. My name is Renee Bleffen and I'll be your MC today for today's digital R U Ok Day. In the spirit of reconciliation, the Fbaa acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connection to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. We'd like to thank the sponsors for making this day possible, so our wellness sponsor, Suncorp, and to our content providers, Mortgage Easy, Mindset Methods, and NextGen.net, and the other presenters for giving up their time and for their continued support of the industry. On behalf of everyone who's involved in this event today, I can say that we are all so excited and so passionate about the messages that we have for you today, and we really hope that you enjoy it. Everyone has personally chosen to be part of this event, and we really hope that that comes across in what you experience with us today. We'd also like to acknowledge Gavin Larkin, who started R U Ok Day, and its continued message that is recognised and shared by many around the world, and Beyond Blue for their support within this space too. You'll actually be able to hear Gavin's story in the break today when we'll be playing a short video. It's a great honour for me to once again MC this event. The first time I did it was last year, and we're obviously in a very different space because we're able to do that in a face-to-face event. So whilst we can't all be together in the same room, I hope that all of you who've chosen to make the time to join us today feel included and you feel very much part of this very special event. I'm very passionate about mental health and as an advocate, and wanted to be involved in today's event because I wanted to acknowledge the important work that the broker community does for Australia, and because of that work, the strain that can come with that very important role that brokers play for their customers and their community. Especially in these unprecedented times that we're all experiencing in some way across our country and across the world, it's never been more important to take the time for self-care and to continue to support one another. R U Ok Day is all about having a conversation. And in my view, brokers and meaningful conversations go hand in hand. As an advocate for the consumer, you have meaningful conversations every single day to satisfy the needs of your borrowers. But today, this is about you and how we can best support you in these challenging times. This year has been tough for all of us, and if ever there was a need to take time to check in with yourself, with your family, with a friend, with a co-worker, anyone around you, it is right now. With everything going on in the world, chances are you know someone who might be struggling, and a simple conversation can help people feel more connected, especially in lockdown, and more supported, and perhaps even a little bit better about their circumstances. Before we get into the agenda, I just want to cover off a couple of important notes. So, as an Fbaa member, I just need to remind you that you could receive 10% off your membership with every person that you recommend to become an Fbaa member, so highly encourage you to take part in that. If you haven't already, we'd also encourage you to download the digital brochure for today's event. It is on the Fbaa website, and it's also in the chat box within the Zoom meeting that you've connected to. It's got information on the speakers and also further resources that you can access within the health and wellness space. Very importantly, there's 3.5 CPD hours allocated today, so please make sure you stay for the full day to ensure that you get the CPD points for your attendance. You'll also be able to watch this event back anytime. And we've got other educational videos available on the Fbaa YouTube channel where you can actually obtain more CPD hours. We are so proud to announce that with your help, we have been able to so far raise $1,518 towards the R U Ok Day charity, plus more from those of you who've decided to donate directly through the link provided. So thank you to everyone who's participated in that so that we can actually contribute to that amazing organisation. If you wish to donate more, you can via the link sent in the registration confirmation email or the follow-up email that will be sent after today's event. I just want to run through the agenda. So first up, we'll hear from the Honourable Greg Hunt MP with a short video. Then we are going to have the amazing message from Joe Hassan, who's an ambassador for R U Ok Day, going through what is it to have a meaningful conversation and the theme for this year's R U Ok Day. We'll then hear from Peter White, who'll be talking about what the Fbaa is doing to actually support their broker base from a mental health and wellness perspective. Pete will then be facilitating a panel, and there'll be some people on that panel that you'll know very well. So look forward to that one. We'll have a short break, and then we're tuning in to hear from Ash Playstead, Mindset Fit Coach, who'll be taking us through an Olympic team model and what that looks like so that you can create the best type of life for yourself. We'll then be hearing to Joanna James from Mortgage Easy, who'll be talking about how to silence that inner critic. And Nicolette Spicer will be talking to us about building resilience. And Nicolette is speaking on behalf of Suncorp, the wellness sponsor. We'll then be having a Q&A session, and we'll run to close. And I've just realised that I've forgotten Alex. I'm so sorry. Alex is going to be talking about having a real life. So to make sure you don't miss that session. As you can see, we've got a jam-packed agenda, and what we've tried to do is come up with a range of topics that's going to help you in whatever space you might be experiencing in your life. And now what we'd like to do is welcome the Honourable Greg Hunt MP to provide us with an update as the Minister for Health and Aged Care. Greg was elected as the federal member for Flinders in 2001. He has served as Minister for the Environment and Minister for Industry, Innovation and Science. As Minister for Health since January 2017, Greg is working to deliver a world-class healthcare system for Australia. In December 2020, Greg added responsibility for aged care to his portfolio, leading the government's response to the Aged Care Royal Commission. And now we'll tune in and hear from Greg.
Well, welcome everyone to the Finance Brokers Association of Australia annual conference and Are You OK Day event. I particularly want to acknowledge Peter White, but all of the members of the association. You keep Australia running through your work in providing individuals and families and small businesses with support, with their capacity to realise their dreams. Against that background, Are You OK and Are You OK Day comes from the dream of Gavin Larkin. He suffered a nightmare first. He lost his beautiful son to suicide following mental health challenges. And he believed that there was a simple message, that if each of us were looking out for each other as well as ourselves and asking that question, are you okay, but really meaning it, then that would give people the space to talk, the ability to breathe, the capacity to reach out. And that's why what you're doing is so important. This year's theme, are you really okay? Emphasises one word, really. It's not just going through the motions, it's asking with intent. It's listening with intent. It's about giving people that sense that each of us cares about the other. And that's so important. And so as a nation, these have been the hardest 18 plus months. You've known it with your businesses. So many of you will have been under stress. Hopefully the different supports that we've been able to provide with regards to JobKeeper and the coronavirus disaster relief payment have made a difference. But for you, within yourselves, within your families, within your workplace, within your friendship groups and communities, to be asking, are you really okay? And to be answering, I'm not, if I'm not okay, is so important. It's about reaching out and seeking help. And yes, we've provided an additional $2.3 billion in funding for mental health this year, but it's much more than that. It's about the Beyond Blue coronavirus wellbeing line, Lifeline, Headspace for our teenagers, Head to Help, which is being created in New South Wales and Victoria in particular, and then going around the country to provide support to people, whether it's walk-in, whether it's telephone, whether it's online. All of these services are about saving lives. And then of course there's Are You OK itself. So I want to thank you and honour you and wish everybody at the Finance Brokers Association of Australia the best of national conferences, but above all else, to hope that each of you are really okay, and if you're not, to reach out for help or to look for a friend who needs help. Take care.
Thank you to the Honourable Greg Hunt with that really important message, and it's so good to see his support of this amazing organisation and initiative, and the way that he understands just how important this issue is for Australia and the world. I now have the great fortune to introduce our Are You Ok Ambassador, Joe Hassan. She has given up her time to join us as a vitality expert. She shows individuals and organisations how an understanding of mental good health and increased vitality can lead to improved profit and more enjoyment of life. She understands the flip side though through her own life experience, and she published a best-selling book about her recovery from post-traumatic stress disorder. This led to her volunteering as a community ambassador for Are You Ok Day. Joe will be sharing and taking us through Are They Really Okay? How to notice signs someone might be struggling in the community, and how to ask Are You Okay meaningfully, and where to refer to help if required, and hear how an Are You Ok conversation can really make a difference. I'd like to now welcome Joe Hassan. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Joe Hassan, and I'm a community ambassador for Are You Ok Day. I've been in this role for some 3 or 4 years now, and normally I show up, not sure how much of me you can see, but I've got a pink skirt on and pink earrings, and normally I run everything in my life bright pink. Today is the only day when I'm presenting for Are You Ok that I break out to a bit of yellow and black. So even though I show up as Pink Joe, vitality expert, the shadow to that is that I had my own mental health crisis back in 1998. So after having my son, I had PTSD, and it was just the darkest time in my life. I had no love for my new baby, my husband. I was completely withdrawn, didn't leave the house for a long time. And it was a secret. So even my parents didn't know that I was experiencing this crisis. So through many life changes about 4 years ago, I decided that we needed to open up the conversation about mental illness. So, it's one thing to show up every day as Vitality Joe or Pink Joe, but I actually wrote a book about my journey through mental illness to start the conversations, because I think we need to talk about mental illness so that in the same way that we talk about a broken arm or a heart attack. So here I am today as your community ambassador. So I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. I should also mention that today's topic is a hard one. So if you have had some experience in your life of mental illness or suicide, then please remember that there are organisations that you can turn to, such as Lifeline, your EAP, and so on. There is no shame in asking for help. In fact, I think I now consider that a sign of strength, whereas there was a time in my life where I wanted to be able to manage everything myself, and sometimes we just can't. So with that, I say that we have a content warning that for some people you may need to take today as a time to look after yourself and reach out if you need to. So every year, Are You Ok has a theme. Other years we've had themes such as Make Every Day Are You Ok Day. We don't just have to align with that first Thursday in October. We really need to be thinking about our mental health and the mental health of people around us every day of the year. In previous recent years, we've talked about trusting the signs, or saying there's more to ask than just, are you okay? This year, the theme is, are they really okay? Ask them today. So with that, I'm going to be presenting some ideas on how you can embrace the idea and hopefully save lives within your community. We're going to watch a short video now.
Are you okay? Are You OK Day is Thursday, 9 September. This year, our message is, are they really okay? Ask them today. Because when it comes to our friends, family and colleagues, do we really know how they're doing? As close as we might be, sometimes it's hard to tell. So stay connected and make asking, are you okay, part of your everyday. That way, if they're struggling with something big, or something small, or maybe nothing at all, they'll know you care. Are they really okay? Ask them today. Learn how to ask at ruok.org.au, because a conversation could change your life.
So what I hope you'll take away from this presentation today is to have some confidence for how you can stay connected with people in your world. And this isn't just your world of financial brokering. This is your world for all parts of your life. So your family, your friends, the sports club, church, whatever other school, whatever other communities you're involved in, so that we can alleviate the loneliness situation. I'll also be sharing with you when you might ask the "Are you okay?" question, and give you a four-step process for how you can ask the question more confidently, so that if you get the feeling that you need to, that you're not left staying silent when reaching out could actually save a life. So Are You OK Day started back in 2009 by Gavin Larkin. So he sadly lost his father to suicide, and because of the industry that he was in, he had the resources available to him to create an idea and then share it through initially through his marketing and advertising, so that other families hopefully wouldn't become devastated as his own family was. Sadly, Gavin lost his life to cancer, but his legacy lives on. So we now are in the 12th year of Are You OK Day on the first Thursday in September. There's actually a really fascinating Australian story episode that outlines Gavin's journey, and I really highly recommend you take half an hour to watch that. So Are You OK Day empowers people in the community to meaningfully connect and lend support. Our mission is to inspire people that they have it within themselves to potentially save a life and alleviate loneliness. And what we want to do is to talk today about how to have a meaningful conversation. So importantly, Are You OK Day it's not about helping the person who is in danger. It's about giving support resources to the people around the person who is potentially challenged. So they might be family, friends, work colleagues, people in the sporting community. So that's our mission, is to help and give a support structure for the people around the person who's struggling. So if you look at this classic pyramid, we're right at the bottom of the pyramid as an informal service, whereas other organisations like Lifeline and Headspace and those sort of 24-hour helpline services, they are the services that could potentially help the person in need, whereas we're an informal service at the bottom of the pyramid. We're going to look at another short video now explaining that.
The risk of suicide increases when someone feels a sense of disconnection and lack of belonging, that they are a burden to others and have the means to take their life. By encouraging people to genuinely ask, "Are you okay?" listen to the answer and help them navigate life's challenges. We can help people struggling with life feel connected long before they're at crisis point. Ask, "Are you okay?" Because a conversation could change a life.
So what we do know is that for those people who have felt a need for support, we know from our research now that 80% of people who have reached out said that they felt supported, because we now have more people in the community having the confidence to ask the question. We know 75% of people felt more connected with those around them. And 72% actually said that they felt that being asked, "Are you okay?" made them feel better about themselves and their conversation. So it really is important, and you really do have the power within you to make a big difference in your community. The video, not on the, it's not on the, that's it. That's it. So what I would just like to share with you now, a couple of real life examples of times in my life over the last couple of years where I have asked the question and it's resulted in a really valuable outcome. So in my work as a vitality expert, I have what I call the vitality journey, and I have words that describe people's feelings, like their level of vitality, and right down the bottom is despair at a minus 25%. And then we work through other levels up to 100% where people are feeling fully vital. And as a business coach, when I'm liaising with a client, I'll ask them where they think they're at on the journey. And if they're down the bottom of the vitality scale at a 0 or a minus 25%, well then I know that as a business coach, I can't help them with their business until they have increased up to at least a 25% where they're in a position to take on more information. So I'll recommend that maybe they need to see their GP or somebody else to help them with their own life before I can look at supporting their business. In another situation a couple of years ago, I gave a new client a copy of my book. He paid a deposit, and then a couple of days later he rang me up and he said, "Look, Joe, I've just read your book and I realise I need to see a psychologist." So he self-diagnosed that he wasn't in a position to work with me. So, you know, it really is, you have more power than you have any idea about. The first gentleman that I mentioned, he wrote me an email a couple of years later and said that I saved his life by sending him to his GP. So it really is, you don't know sometimes the power that talking to people has until much later on. So when might you ask, "Are you okay?" Well, we all have life going on. If you imagine that we've got a bucket of emotions and the bucket is filled up by happy things happening in our life, and it's like we've got a leaky bucket when there's stuff going on that is depleting our emotions. So it might be that you've had a relationship breakup recently, or it might be that your cat's died or your neighbour's died, or it might be that you've got challenges in your business with cash flow or team members. It might be that you have a health issue going on. So there are many reasons why people, the foundation of resilience and the bucket of emotions can be depleted. So I guess when you know that someone's actually got one of those things going on, well, then that's a starting point for asking the question. And sometimes it's not just about what they say. You know, sometimes people might tell you that they're feeling a bit down. In other cases, you might observe that there's something different about their behaviour. So maybe they are people who are always at work early and ready to start with enthusiasm. And maybe they've been arriving a bit late, maybe they're yawning, maybe they're mentioning that they're not sleeping as well. So there's some examples. Maybe they're social media fans and they normally post lots of happy photos on Facebook or wherever, and you've noticed that they've been a bit quiet on social media lately. Maybe you know that they have a sick child or a sick parent, or their car's broken down, or there's some other big thing going on in their life. So listen out for real evidence that there's something not quite right, because that will make asking the "Are you okay?" question a little bit easier if you've got something that you can attach the question to. All of us, of course, have been severely affected by this pandemic that's been going on. You know, it's normal to feel overwhelmed and just to feel a little bit of that fight or flight thing about things changing so rapidly. Now, even this conference, now the organisers have gone through a lot of stress, I'm sure, now wondering whether it's going to be a live event or not a live event. You know, even something like that puts a lot of undue stress. Maybe there are some of you around Australia who were really wanting to attend because this is your once a year where you get to catch up with your colleagues, and you've had it taken away from you again. So, you know, it's normal for all of us to be feeling some levels of uncertainty and disappointment at the moment. The government, actually, the National Mental Health Commission, put together this flyer where they suggested some real practical steps that everybody can take to overcome some feelings of, you know, as they say, fatigue, irritability, forgetfulness, and feeling worn out. So they suggest reaching out to people around you, exercising, taking a break. You know, when you stop for lunch, for example, don't eat your lunch at your desk. Get up and go and get some fresh air and sit outside, maybe meet a friend for coffee so that you can talk about something that's nothing to do with work. So, you know, make the break to separate work from non-work, even at lunchtime and in your coffee break. Now, there are many organisations that are able to help if you want to have a conversation, and many, like Beyond Blue, have a special coronavirus helpline. So there's a number on the screen there, and I'm sure you'll be sent a, well, I think you've got a downloadable resources list, so I'm sure that number will be on the list. So what I'm going to talk about now is how to have that conversation. So the first thing is to make sure that you are ready. So you need to be feeling okay yourself. Don't reach out to somebody else when you're already feeling a bit vulnerable and fatigued yourself. Don't rush when you've got to get to that appointment, a client meeting, or pick your daughter up from school. Like, you need to actually have enough time to have the conversation, and you need to be feeling fairly confident of your own situation, because once you start having an emotional conversation by somebody else, it may be that triggers something in you anyway. So you want to have the strongest foundation of resilience that you possibly can. So once you've actually ensured that you're okay yourself, well, then finding that moment. It might be that this is a person that you could suggest, well, let's go for a walk together, or let's exercise together, let's catch up for coffee. it's harder if it's somebody in a work situation, and normally you would meet, and now you're connecting over Zoom or Teams or whatever. But we've all had to adapt over the last 18 months. So if the person is not somebody that you could connect with in person, especially if you're in a place that's still in lockdown, then if the best you can do is have a Zoom coffee or a Zoom lunch together, well then do that. Don't use the fact that you physically can't catch up in person as a reason to not do so. So once you've actually made the decision that you want to have a conversation, we have a four-step process. Some people use the first letter of each of the 4 steps to create an acronym called ALEC. Now, ALEC essentially stands for ask, are you okay? Listen, encourage action, and then check in. So they're the 4 steps, and I'm going to run through each of those 4 steps with you now. So when you're going to ask the are you okay question, after making sure that you're ready and sound with your own emotional and resilience level, it's good if you can identify the thing that you have noticed about the person that has brought you to the point where you're concerned. So if you could say, hey, Sue, I noticed that you're normally first at work, and you're normally bright and bubbly. And I've noticed that you've been late a little bit the last few days, and you seem to be tired. Are you sleeping okay? Are you okay? So if you can actually find the thing that you've noticed, or it might be, you haven't been on social media lately. You're normally, on there every day. Or, whatever it is that you've noticed, if you can attach that to the conversation, then it's kind of easier. It's easier. It's an easier intro than just coming out straight with the words. So there are some examples on the screen there. Hey, you don't seem yourself lately. Do you want to talk about it? So there are a few other examples there. The second step is to listen. For some people, listening is really, really hard. And listening often involves silence. And sometimes silence is really good. And if, when you start the conversation, there is silence, be okay with that. Also be okay that the person might start talking and they might get emotional. That might make you emotional. They might get angry. Please don't take it personally. Please be okay with the silence and listen and listen and listen, because that will encourage people to talk more freely. So it's important when you're picking your moment that you actually have time. As I said, don't suggest catching up when you've got a really tight deadline, or you've got to pick your daughter up from school or whatever it is. You need to, if you possibly can, allow an hour. It might be over within 10 minutes, but it also might take an hour and 10 minutes. Because if somebody does start opening up, you don't want to stop them in their tracks. So have enough time. The third part of the process is to encourage action. So depending on how long the situation has been ongoing, or what your relationship with the person is, and how serious you think the situation is, that will determine the action that you might encourage. So if it's that they for whatever reason, they haven't been to the gym for the last 10 days, well, it might be that the action you encourage is going to the gym tomorrow, or going to the gym with you, or going for a walk with you. But if the person if you think it's more serious than that, then it might be that the action you encourage is to seek medical attention. Maybe their GP. Maybe that they've had some challenges in the past, and that they already have a psychologist that they see sometimes. So you might encourage a visit to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. it might be that the action that you think that needs to happen is a lot more immediate than that, and maybe you share the Lifeline phone number with them. Might be that if in the work situation that you share your EAP details with them. So it depends, you know, how much of a crisis the person is in, what your relationship with them is, and you know, there are a number of factors that will determine the sort of action that you encourage. But what we do ask is that if you have encouraged some action, that you then check in. So, oh, sorry, there are a few options on the screen. There are some other numbers that you could use to encourage action. And here is your local Fbaa contact that you can make at any time. So this information is in the downloadable notes for today. And there's lots more information that you can download too from the Are You OK website. So after you've encouraged action could be in a variety of take a variety of forms. You then please do commit to checking in with the person. So you might say that you'd check in with them tomorrow, or in a couple of days, or next week, depending on the nature of the situation. So what might happen when you check in is the person might say, yeah, I did, thank you so much for suggesting that. I went to the doctor and, oh, you know, it's such a relief to share, and now I've got a referral to a psychologist. There might be something solid that's happened. There also might be, no, I decided I didn't want to. No, even though I said I would, no, I decided not to. So don't be cranky with the person. Please check in a bit later. Maybe the very fact that you've asked and you've checked in as you said you would, maybe that's enough for them to then take action after that conversation. So, you know, you might ask whether they need more support. You might ask, have things improved since we last spoke? And if they have, great. And if they haven't, well, then maybe you can suggest some other courses of action. So we challenge you also, given that one of the big factors in the video we just saw, one of the factors is loneliness. So staying connected with people, especially now, just for the sake of staying connected, is such an important part of this process. So maybe within your organisation, maybe you could have a challenge where you challenge one another to stay connected via some different means. Maybe it's a text message, maybe it's a Zoom coffee catch up, maybe it's going for a walk at lunchtime. So challenge yourself to actually reach out and make more connections than you usually do. And I'm not talking about work client connections just for the sake of the next work job. I'm talking about making connections with people in your world simply for the sake of staying connected. So to summarize again, the four-step process in asking, are you okay, is to ask the question and to then listen, then encourage action, and then check in to see that the person has taken action. Now, we have many resources on the Are You OK website. There's some examples here. This is one of the brochures. So there are many industry-specific brochures that are available. There are posters that you can download and stick on your office wall. Posters that you can share with people. We have wristbands. We have little cards that you can put in your wallet. We have these sort of brochures. So, and then there are more fun things like the cap and the soccer ball, and there's all sorts of merchandise now. You can buy paper cups to have an Are You OK morning tea with Are You OK tea bags and Kit Kats. There's all sorts of merchandise available. Even to give you more to give you more confidence, would you believe, if you go to the Are You OK? No, sorry, you don't need to go to the Are You OK website for this. If you've got one of those Google Home apps, you can say, hey, Google, talk to Are You OK, mate? And so all these ideas that I've been sharing with you this morning, you can actually practice to get some confidence. So it's one thing to role play with family or colleagues, but it's quite another to role play with your Google Assistant to get some confidence. So I encourage you to give that a go, and I encourage you to have the confidence to stay connected with colleagues and family, and especially in 2021, in this year of so many people being separated and lonely, to ask that question when they, to ask, are you okay? But if they say yes and you think they're not, well then, or if they say they are, or if they say they're not and you think they're not, then, sorry, just getting a bit confused with my positives and negatives there. Anyway, I want you to embrace the notion of asking, are you okay? And are you really okay? And know that in the time it takes to have a cup of coffee, you could potentially save a life. So thank you for listening, and I'll hand you back now to Renee, but please do go to the website and download some resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Gosh, that was such an important message and such good information. For me, my takeaways there were the statistics around how much of an impact it can actually make. And really what we're talking about is allowing someone else to feel like they are seen and that they're being heard. And it doesn't mean that you have to have all the answers, but acknowledge and see and hear the people around you, and it can actually make a real difference. So thank you, Joe. And I would definitely also encourage you to have a look at the website for the other tools. Some of the videos are very entertaining and really help give some guidelines on the answers to give and not to give. So make sure you check that out. Now what I'd like to do is welcome the man behind today, our Managing Director of the Fbaa, Peter White, AM. Peter is a strong and passionate advocate for the industry. He spends a significant amount of time with regulators and government, as well as being a registered lobbyist in his own right, and is the leading advocate for mental health awareness in our finance industry. Peter was recognised in the 2019 Queen's Birthday Honours with an AM member of Order of Australia for significant services to industry and the community. I've worked with Peter for some time, and it gives me absolute pleasure to welcome Peter for his wellness message, and he'll also be facilitating a women's panel following this. So Peter, welcome.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks so much. G'day, everybody, and thanks for joining us for Are You OK Day. And we're very, very appreciative of Renee emceeing for us today, and Joe's conversation just then was absolutely bang on. And I guess that's an important piece of what today is about, and why I'm dressed like this, to be honest with you. If I was in a suit and tie, you'd probably go, Whitey, that's not you. That's not how you dress. This is all about real conversations and breaking through that when we ask somebody, are you okay? It's not expecting the response, yeah, mate, I'm fine. No worries at all. We all do that. But that's not necessarily the genuine answer. Because when you're not doing okay, you need to find those people you have trust in to share that real conversation. Be the real you. Don't be somebody you're not, and don't try and mask over things. It's really, really important, because we all struggle. COVID's been an absolute bitch to us all, being in lockdown and struggling through what we're going on. It's just not easy. It's tough. We get it. Even in my own household, I see it. My wife, as many of you would know, suffers from depression, and she's been struggling really bad over the last month. It's just one of those things that first period of COVID, we all seemed to get through. We had a bit of fun with it. This time it feels like somebody's hit us across the back of the head with a baseball bat. And as I said, my wife feels it, I feel it, and so many of you have been feeling it as well. But this is why we've got to remember we are a family. We're in this together. We need to be having real conversations and be prepared for the answer, but not to be judgmental. Be great listeners and be very understanding. And that's what this is all about. So it's very, very important that we do join together. And today I put a message out in the media last week about today saying, take today off, have time to stop for a minute. Our worlds are so busy, we sometimes forget to stop and smell the roses, as the old expression is. It's very important that we do, otherwise the world will pass us by. And the last thing we want is to fall into that dark hole of mental illness. Now, we all know that data hasn't greatly changed, I guess, in one respect, but 8 people a day commit suicide from mental illness. Right? 8 people a day committing suicide. And I know in the spheres in which I run, whether it be within the finance circle, whether it be in the mental health or the special needs area that charities involved in, and just the people I speak with, suicide is very close to us for people who get to the point where they just can't cope. And we want to look after one another. Are You OK Day was all about having that early intervention conversation. So that's what we need to be doing. We need to be looking after one another, checking in with one another, and just seeing how you're going. It doesn't have to be a succinct conversation on, so you're struggling, are you? Say, how are you dealing with that? That isn't it. No one's going to talk to you like that. Genuineness, being real, being a friend, being a mate, catching up for a coffee or a beer or wine, whatever it may be, and just talking. Because when the talking stops, is where the hole opens up and you fall into it. And getting out of it is the biggest struggle of your life, I can assure you. So anyhow, we won't dwell on that. What I want to do is have a chat to some of our Fbaa ladies, introduce them and have a bit of a panel conversation and talk about how they deal with work-life balances. My wife says I'm the world's worst multitasker. I am. She's the best. All the women are the best at multitasking. So let's see how they deal with juggling work, business, mental health, family, kids, and God knows what else they look after. So let me introduce someone we have. Here's Leah. We're going to stand up and do this just for the sake of ease of today's exercise. So Leah, come and join us. Yeah, we all know Leah. Kim Seghetti, I'll move out of the way in a sec, one of our directors. Chris Green, our the Queensland State President. Who else we got?
Felicity.
Oh, Felicity. Oh, take that, Leah. Our teacher to stand close.
Are you okay?
Are you okay? Not anymore, she says. And we got Felicity online as well. So I'm going to step a little out of the way because this is all about the ladies. So ladies, hopefully Felicity's also on the side. There she is. Hey, Felicity. How you doing? Why aren't you here? Oh, that's right. You're in New South Wales. Sorry about that. And sorry to everyone in New South Wales. I know the difficulties in lockdown, so it's not fun. So I want to get a really good understanding as to how you women all deal. Come this way a little bit. That's the cinema. Yep. It's like a TV studio. The marks on the floor. Is to understand how you deal with juggling so many different things, in addition to then looking after yourself physically and with your mental health. Because we all know how difficult it is. It's no big secret. But I think a lot of you don't really understand what these ladies go through. My wife keeps telling me that I've got no idea, but that's another conversation. But yeah, that's okay. So I'm going to start with you, Leah. You're at the end there. So Leah, look, and everyone knows Leah, our East Coast State Manager, runs our conference, does everything under the sun for us. We love her to death. She's a pain in the neck, but we still love her to death. That's all right. But Leah, you are always on the go. And I'm going to share a secret with you, and she doesn't know I'm going to do this, so that's all right. Leah has this real rock hard, solid outside, and don't cross it because she'll punch you in the nose. But the reality is that's not her inside. I see when she struggles. I see the soft side of Leah. And Leah, I know you push through life. How do you do it? Because you put a presence on for industry. I've known you for a lot longer than probably most people within industry. How do you cope with things? And I know at times maybe you don't.
Badly. This year's probably been a real struggle for me, and I'll own it. I've got family in Sydney going through lockdown at the moment. They've done 11 weeks of lockdown down there now, and I found it really hard to not have contact with, like have face-to-face contact with my family. So emotionally, I've taken a beating over that. Generally though, what I've learned, especially with COVID and working from home and lockdowns and everything else, I have to get 20 minutes in the sun a day. It was a massive learning curve for me about having that time to just go out and sit in the sun. And if I take my laptop or take a coffee, but sunshine to me became so important rather than having the walls and just having windows there. So I had to learn to take that time and step away because I was finding working from home probably worse habits than I had in the office, that I was working straight through. I wasn't stopping for morning tea or lunch or Like I'll get up in the office and talk to the staff and just have that break. I don't have that at home. So it became, you know, working from 8 in the morning till 6 at night and just going right through. So yeah, really important just to get out in the sun is my main thing now, and making sure I get that sun in me.
Is that why you're looking all tanned? I thought you'd been on the sun.
This was called a last minute spray tan. We're obviously going live today, and I didn't want to look like this with a friendly ghost. So I worked on my Queensland winter tan, also known as I'm white.
Very good, very good. And we've got old Lee Felicity out there in you're the north of Sydney, Newcastle sort of area, I think, from memory. Felicity, how are you going with things? Because you're in a really tough situation there in New South Wales with the lockdowns and so on that's been going on. How are you coping with your work as a broker? Felicity's also a director of the Fbaa, and dealing with your life and your mental health challenges. How are you going?
Yeah, look, I would have thought I was doing all right until the other day I had a complete and utter meltdown. But it's interesting what Lee is saying about the sunshine. I was starting to put more hours in and not take the breaks. And when you work from home, I think that's a trap you do fall into. So, yeah, so I guess having the meltdown and just, you know, throwing myself on the floor and having a, 5-year-old tantrum and screaming and yelling and all the rest, got it out of my system, fantastic. And I had to go and do a bit of retail therapy, so I went to Woolies and bought some stuff because that's about the best I could do at the moment in lockdown. So yeah, but apart from that, I think you just have to remember to take the breaks, and I just fell into that trap of just doing, oh well, I don't have the travelling time to my office, so now I can do more work and all the rest, and I'm actually far less productive with a lot less breaks when I do it that way. So it's been a big learning experience from that perspective. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's difficult. Well, I tell you what, you've been really snappy on the documents at board level. You've been really quick at it, so all power to you. Oh
God, I'm not going enough not to.
Quick off the mark. Talking about boards, it's Kim Segedi. Now, a lot of you may not have seen Kim before, but Kim is a broker, a mortgage broker. She's also a director of the Fbaa, but Kim's also our company secretary. And one of the most important roles in corporate land is looking after governance and compliance. And Kim rules us with a strong iron fist. It's great. But Kim, you've got a business to run. You've got the Fbaa. I don't know where you fit the time to do the Fbaa stuff, but you should see the policies, the procedures, and God knows what else that Kim produces for us at board level is just beyond compare. And absolutely magnificent. So great praise to you for all you do there. But you've got a husband, you've family. How do you deal with all that? Because just governance alone, from a risk perspective and a board perspective, is an enormous job in its own right.
Well, my accountant said to me many years ago, he said, you're the best juggler. And that's what it is. It's just keep on juggling. Sometimes the balls drop, but yeah. And you've really got to get up and get out there. You cannot just stay behind that desk looking at social media, looking at things. You've got to get out, go away, come back, you're fresh, start again. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, I can't disagree with you that. I think, quite often, even here in the office at the Fbaa, we will quite often just get away from the desk and go for a walk around, have a chat. It's not just you're wasting time. You're actually getting that bit of headspace, a bit of clearing away from what you're doing to be able to reset and keep going again. So, definitely. And Chris, you're as busy as you're there with Liberty Network Services as state manager. Is that the right term?
No, Liberty. I look after business.
Business. Okay, I was close.
Close.
So you've got family, obviously. You've got people around. You've got to look after. You've got a big, busy life. How are you dealing with things? How's it impacting your life? Everything you're going through and your mental health. Is it something you can find simple or easy to deal with, or you're finding the challenges along the way?
Oh, look, well, without a doubt, there's always challenges, but I think for myself, I feel incredibly blessed. I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for where I live in Queensland, and I certainly feel for those that are heavily impacted right now. So I guess really for myself, it's actually firstly just been very grateful for what I have. One thing I learned very long time ago is that I don't deal very well with stress. So it's something that I've had to learn with, and things that I do for myself. I love the sun just like Leah. I make sure that I keep myself healthy. I keep myself active. It's really, really important for me personally. You know, and as I said before, just to continue to be really grateful and surround myself with people that, you know, genuinely care, and then ensure that I put myself out for those that needs to come to.
Yeah, I think it's a really important piece that you've all got to find it when the stress is on, the pressure's on, whether it be you know, you're feeling a bit depressed or the anxieties are kicking in, you find something to do. And it's something I learned a few years ago because I suffered badly with the side of, not quite into depression, but more with the anxieties, and they get pretty severe and debilitating. But one thing I found was to get off my backside and do something different. So whatever I'm doing at that time, it's regardless of what it is, if the anxiety starts to kick in, I got to get up or whatever I'm doing and go do something different. Break the cycle, get away from it, get out and be part of it. And that's basically why my wife pushed me to get back on a motorbike. I used to ride a bike all the time in my younger years and haven't for some time. But getting back on a motorbike now is, for me, is getting out of the house, is getting out, doing something different, go for a ride and just chill out. And we'll have more to tell you about motorbikes later, but we won't do that today. Don't tell anyone, but I'm starting up a motorcycle riders group. Just between us. So, we'll be good. My chairman's not happy about it, but he gets hurt when he goes sailing, so he can, it's all good. But yeah, boy, but it's doing something that helps break that cycle. Because otherwise, if you don't break the cycle, it becomes a snowball that keeps growing, and you will fall into that dark hole. And once you fall into that dark hole of mental illness, it's near impossible to get out of it. This is where the suicide becomes a high-risk issue. So you've got to be really careful of that. So I do want to ask just a little bit more from each of you before we move forward. How do you personally deal with these challenges? Have we still got Felicity there? No? Yes,
Yeah.
yes, she is.
Yeah, hi, Pete. Yeah.
Felicity, how do you deal with the adversities? How do you deal with the challenges when things get hard? We've talked about going outside and that sort of stuff, but are there other things you do to try and break the cycle? I get out on a motorbike. What is it that you do? Is there something particular that helps you?
Yeah, definitely, Pete. I actually would like to sort of probably just refer to a quote, which is, it was in the Marigold Hotel. Can't think of the movie at the moment, but anyway, you know, everything's going to be all right in the end, and if it's not all right, it's not yet the end. And I love that quote because often you can't do anything about whatever you're going through at that time, so there is no point throwing more worry and distress at it. So I kind of like to have that quote there and going, you know what, it's not all right. It's going to be all right in the end. And you know what, it is all right in the end. And it could be that you just die and then it's all right. So, you know.
The ultimate fulfillment. Thanks for that.
Oh, wow.
But no, that's the drastic side of that quote. But no, but everything is all right in the end. And, you know, sometimes you've just got to hand it off to the CEO of the universe and say, you know what, I'm done with it because I can't fix it. I can't do anything, and then walk away from it. And if I can allow myself to do that instead of trying to have, you know, take control and do all that sort of stuff, because I ain't any good at it. So I'm better off just walking away from it. Yeah. So that's kind of what I do with it when things are really bad.
Yeah, very wise. How about you, Leah? What do you do? Where's me off from the sun? So where it really starts to, you know,
to the personal world.
It doesn't. That's what I do. That adversity, though, that, you know, like you're running into a brick wall. It's all good to go out in the sun, but you know, at times it just doesn't cut it. Are there other things you do? Because it's important, because we all do different things to break the cycle, to try and get back on track, to regroup that motivation, that drive within us that we normally have, that all of a sudden goes, shit, where did that go? You know?
There's probably 4 things that I recall on that I do to pick myself up out of a bad day. And we've got an active, I suppose, BDM social group that sits behind the scenes, and there's a separate group to that, which are part of the admin group. And we tend, if we're having a really bad day or one of us is kind of tripped over, the other three are there to pick you back up, dust you off, and generally take the mickey out of you. So I think that that's been a saving grace for me, as well as I know that they're the people I can lean on. I know for myself, we had Mark Boris at the conference around about 4 years ago. And Mark was going through stages of meditation and what he does through that side. So I have 2-minute meditations now, and they're on my mobile phone. So no matter where I am, I'm able to just plug my phone or plug my headset in, and I'm able to go through those if I'm on the road, if I'm on a flight, anything like that. And that's become a real turning point for me, because I was against meditation, although I just think it was the biggest crock of out there, and realised that it actually does a lot for you to take the breaths and slow it down. But cooking is a vice for me. If I get really stressed and pissed off, I cook. But I took up ballroom dancing as well as an outlet of something I'd never done before, and I had to use my mind the other way. And they say through dancing you're using basically every facet of your brain, and it was something I never really wanted to do. I can thank 2 ex-staff members of ours for pushing me into doing it. And I stepped right out of my comfort zone for that, but I feel so much better when I do it. So I gave up sport, as most people know, around about 5 years ago. I gave up my netball career, and here I am now learning to be a baby elephant on a dance floor. So yeah.
So many places I could go that I'm not. You know me, I'll just walk away from it. But I do want to touch on one other thing there that hopefully you don't mind. You had a very challenging year last year.
I did.
How did you deal with that?
Gosh, that's opening. I think for me, it was mind over matter. I didn't lean on a lot of people, and it wasn't that I didn't appreciate the help and the support of the industry. I think it was just more of I just got on with the job and was trying to keep myself so dug into work and the things that I knew made me feel better. And a lot of that was dealing with our brokers and we have a very human relationship with our brokers. And I think that is a good driving force for me to, I was in hospital and getting phone calls from brokers, and we were just having a really genuine laugh. So it was, it was a long stretch for me in hospital at 21 days, and it was probably a good 5 months of my life messed up from what had happened. And it was through, I guess, the support of so many different people, but in my mindset, still working, still getting up every day and still living a routine. I think that's what drove me through most of it, where some people, when they do get sick and things happen to them, they go into the mindset of I'm sick, and they sit there and they don't do anything about it. And I think for me, it was more the mindset stuff of just, I suppose, benefits of taking on board that you can overcome things if you set your mind on wanting to overcome.
Yeah, very much so. So the right sort of mindset, but also to that part that I always talk about when I'm speaking at PD days, when we're doing them, or at Are You OK Day. It's about family, and we are a family, and we need to treat and respect each other as a part of that family, which is why we need to have the genuine conversations, the real conversations. I can quite easily stand. I'm not sitting. I'm standing. Stand here in a suit and tie, and but that's not really me. So I didn't think that was appropriate for today. So I wanted to be genuine conversations. So that genuineness and the reality of the respect of that genuine conversation is also important, as far as I'm concerned. So, and Kim, so when the challenges arise, and regardless of what we've already spoken about, are there other things that you look to do besides building Chris up, your husband? That's okay. That's a sport. That's not doing. That's a sport.
I am very
tricky. I know you've got a ladies' cricket connected regularly. Is that a part of it, or?
Yes. So during lockdown last year, we started a ladies' picnic group. So we were able to go outside. We're only allowed 10 when we started it back then, and that has continued on. And we meet. A lot of us meet every Friday if we don't have something else on. We meet in a park somewhere. We all take a picnic and have a chat, and then we go home. And it's really good.
Supporting each other.
Yeah. But apart from that, when I'm having a bad day, I vent.
You vent.
I really vent, and I'm lucky I have Chris.
I've seen some of that venting. You don't want to be there.
And I feel so good when I vented it, but I've dumped it onto someone else and I'm left. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great idea. I can see a comment card there, and other people think it's a great idea as well. That getting together, having a bit of a picnic, going out where you can, as you can, depending on where you are, and when you can, where you are. We know that's a real juggle. But you know, I guess it's a part of that, doing something different to break the cycle a little bit, and also doing something for self. I think sometimes we think doing something for self is selfish. It's not. Yeah, it's a necessity. And it's something very, very important that we do take care of and look after with each other. And Christine, what about you? When it really kicks in bad, have you got any little things that you do to help break the cycle?
Well, I thought I'd just share something actually, Pete. Firstly, you mentioned motorbikes. I think we might have a Fbaa bike club happening here, because one of the things I used to do, especially as a kid, was get on a motorbike. And I actually stopped riding just before my daughter. So that was really something that that was my release. I really enjoyed it. So I just thought I'd highlight that.
Well, what you want to be thinking about is buying another bike and getting ready. It's happening. I'm in the final stages. So, and we're calling it an industry motorcycle riders group. So it's for everyone in the industry. And I've spoken around the country about this when we could. And I've got people in every state that are going to come and join us. Anyhow, we should move on. Thanks for the segue.
Bring in the bike club. For myself, really, I'm a big believer in communicating and talking as well. And I have a 10 going on 11-year-old daughter. And one of the things I really instill in her is that I want her to express herself and her feelings, and this is something really important to me. So one thing that if I'm having a really bad day, I just need to look at my daughter and get a really big hug and know that, you know, wow, if I could just be her for a moment and realise, you know what, it's not that bad. I can get through anything. So again, I feel really blessed that I do have a daughter.
That's a very interesting piece. Many of you will know that my stepdaughter has special needs. And you sometimes sort of go, oh, why is this happening to me? Sort of thing. But then you look around at other people's circumstances, and we quite often go to Charlie's special needs school, and you see kids there that are terribly mentally impaired. They've got 2 prosthetic legs, so they have no legs, but they're off on a mission. Their heads are in another space, enjoying life. And you still think the parents, geez, that'd be hard to keep up with. But you stop them and go, actually, what I've got is really precious. It is really good. And sometimes you just need that little click along the way that sort of says, yeah, it's not that bad. And you've got to find that peace and that space in each of our lives to whatever it is to you. And it's different for all of us.
Yeah.
So it's important. And I can see I'm nearly out of time. I've got our MC up here giving me the big wind-up signal going on. Get him off. She knows better than that, surely. One last little piece. So before we go, Felicity, back to you. Just in normal life, if we can remember what normal life looked like. So Felicity's over there for me, by the way, in case you wonder I'm not really there. Felicity's over there. What else do you do? What do you have a sport, a hobby? What's something that Felicity does just for normal relaxation?
Well, I'm a big movie buff, so and I actually I like the big cinemas, which I'm kind of missing at the moment. But yeah, look, apart from that, I'm simple. Oh, I have simple needs, I guess.
Wrong with that?
It's a coffee shop for a chat. It's yeah, it's a good movie. If it's a new release movie, I'm there. I love to go to gold class, that sort of stuff. Yeah, I think and swimming, I guess, I'd love to get back to that, which I haven't been able to do. So that's kind of what I do.
I'm with you. I love the gold class. I've got to take my stepson to the movies on the weekend. And of course, there's only one kind of movie you should be watching, and that's sci-fi, right?
No, absolutely not.
Leah, what is it? What is it you do? Do you go surfing? Do you go
water kayaking? Kayaking is a big thing. My partner and I have both got kayaks each, and we've got paddle boards, and anything that puts us on the water is our out.
What a baby.
Yeah.
All right. Kim?
Bike riding.
Like
Push
bike
riding.
Push bike. We almost got her.
No, just push bike,
Yeah,
Yeah,
on the
along
bike,
the,
that's right.
along the beach, just fantastic through Surfers Paradise.
Lovely.
Yeah.
What about you, Chris?
I find myself water too. I mean,
Yeah,
I
water.
live close to the beach, so actually got in the water last week for the first time, broke in the season for swimming. So yeah, that's me.
It's still a bit chilly down this way.
Don't worry, Felicity, it was on Saturday up here as well.
Yeah, it's only 28. It was really cold. All right, we'll move on. Ladies, thank you. Thanks for sharing your stories. Hope you found that interesting. Hopefully there's something in all of this that works for each of us to say, find that space, be prepared to face the adversities and the challenges and push through them to what it needs you to be able to do that, to whatever that is. Doesn't matter what it is, just get through it. And remember, we are family. Remember, we need to reach out to each other, and we need to be really genuine in who we are as people. We quite often are just putting on these facades, and it's not the genuineness of who we are. We need to make sure we dump that, be who we are, and have real conversations with each other. Anyhow, thank you. Take care. I'm going to hand back to our wonderful MC, Renee. Thanks, Renee. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Bye. See you, Felicity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Gosh, that was a fantastic panel. Pete, amazing job at facilitating such a lively conversation. And to Leah, Felicity, Kim and Chris, thank you for sharing, honestly, what's going on for you and what works for you. I love that Hotel Marigold Hotel, both of them. They're very, very funny, and I love that little tip. And to hear what each of those fabulous women need to do and have learnt about and learnt to bring into their lives to make their lives better and to help those around them. Hopefully you got something from that conversation. I would encourage you to have a look at the chat and please post your comments, post any questions you've got, post how you're feeling about what you're hearing today. And for the speakers that are coming up this afternoon, if you've got any questions that you'd like asked, I just want to make another reminder to put it in the chat and we can add that to the panel session at the end of today. We are going to now take a short break. It will be 15 minutes and we'd encourage you to actually don't disconnect from the session and rejoin us. Please stay. If you would like to go and do some movement, we're encouraging physical movement and go and have some hydration, whether that be a cup of tea, coffee, water, whatever. Please go and grab something. We're going to play a video, which is the Gavin Larkin story about Are You OK Day, and we'll see you again in 15 minutes. Thank you.
G'day. Someone who's had a lifelong love affair with the last word. No surprise that I want to have it here. So hopefully you'll indulge me. Goodbye. Goodbye to all of you. Love yourselves and each other.
I got into advertising in 1996.
Gav was the quintessential alpha male. And whenever he walked into the room, you know, people knew the big man had arrived, and he couldn't have really been swinging much higher in terms of having the beautiful house, the beautiful life, success in every way, shape or form.
I had 3 beautiful kids. I had a wonderful wife, and our marriage was the best it had been in 15 years of being together. And I should have been feeling on top of the world, and you know, I felt empty, I felt black, and it really scared me. And I started to worry that I might do what my father did, which was take his own life.
Oh, where's that kiss?
Gav was quite worried about the confusion that he had about why he was not feeling complete when the world tells him that he's got actually everything that he needs. I'd done some work with a self-improvement communications course, and he went and did it and got a lot out of it.
Part of that course is to develop a project that inspires you and that has a benefit to any community that you're involved with. And I chose suicide prevention.
Thank you, and I can't wait for the next 40.
The thought of doing a day of action became really the imperative, and on the spot called it Are You OK Day. Today is the day that I need to think about someone other than myself who might be struggling, you know, and reach out and say, are you okay?
I just wanted to talk you through the progression of the logo.
And you know, when Gav took it on, there was no stopping him.
It's almost double the road toll, and no one talks about it.
You've got News Limited on side, all the networks on side, some or other econ, Hugh Jackman, you name it. Everyone got into this Are You OK Day.
I started to get these, what I thought were sports injuries. Finally, the pain got so bad, my doctor ordered a full body scan, and that full body scan turned up bone cancer. 16th of February 2010, and my world just collapsed. It was like getting hit by a truck, because the fear is intense because you don't know what it is.
Go Turkey.
In the background, while all this is going on, our 11-year-old son at the time, Gus, had been having some trouble with his eye.
Nice one, Turkey Tom. Oh,
Tragically, they said that Gus had an inoperable brain tumour, which was just, you know, devastating. Doesn't even do it justice.
Que sera.
Que sera. It is true, isn't it? You could say, why me? And then you go, well, why not me? You know, what is it about us that's so different or special? At the end of the day, life is random, and that's what makes it wonderful. And you just got to cop the good with the bad.
Stay still.
I am so proud of Gus. You know, he has just been so accepting all the way through of his own sickness, and I feel like he is of Gavin's as well, and there's a bit of camaraderie there.
Love you, Bob.
He's tough and brave, same thing with me. And we all love him. He's got so much support.
Love you too, buddy.
Gav, you know, he fought to make sure that he saw that very last Are You OK Day in September 2011.
I'm sitting at home and I've got the Twitter on and looking at Facebook and I've just been watching the commercial channels, and they're running the ads, and it's everywhere. So I'm, you know, very happy, because that's
he was determined. He did a radio interview the very day of Are You OK Day as well, and he was so sick.
Are You OK Day was always something that I wanted to see live on, because it is more important than me.
And then the following week after that is when he died.
Love you, Gav.
Love you,
Bye, Gav.
Towards the end of 2012, Gus did get sick again. That was a really, really hard time, because I knew Gus was going to get really sick, and I didn't have Gav with me to navigate that. Gus was very accepting. He didn't want to talk about his sickness so much, which I love about him. And he lived like that till the very end, yeah. We went on a holiday about a year after Gus died. I remember being so upset on that holiday, because there was families all around us, and it was so obvious to me that we'd gone from 5 to 4 to 3 in such a short amount of time. It was so, I remember it being so confronting. You guys remember a lot from when you were little.
I liked the best how we chose photos when Gus and Dad weren't sick.
Yes.
I was very much like, why did it have to happen to us? But I think I just very much focused on the fact that it wasn't like they've left and that everything of them is gone. Like, there are so many other things that, like, in our life now are constant reminders of them.
Dad was very brave. He was very strong-hearted.
Looking very proper.
You and Gus were in that little bath photo.
I think about Gus a lot. Like every day I'd go into his bed and watch iPad and stuff.
I think outsiders look at it and think, oh my God, if that happened to me, how would I get up every day and blah. And I do have feelings like that some days, that it is so hard. But we've been able to cope. And I would say cope pretty well, actually.
But now, hopefully, by me sharing a part of myself with you, you may be able to share a part of yourself with someone else.
This is the house that like lives and breathes Are You Okay? And it's incredible to like see the community that Are You Okay built around us.
Well, I can stay very involved in what we do. Josie often speaks on behalf of us. Maz is someone who comes in and gives us a hand from time to time. Gav's brother Aya is still on the board.
Thank you to your family for making all this possible.
I mean, it's come a long way. The growth has been phenomenal. About 80% of Australians know about Are You Okay?
But he's been integral to every single event. You know, we always start with that.
Gav's never far away. You know, I often think, you know, what would Gav think about this? And I hope that he'd be happy with where we're going.
He'd be very happy. He would be very happy.
You were in the epicentre of everything and we can kick off you.
When Gav started Are You Okay? He had no idea what was down the track for us. So it's so strange to think that what he put in place was actually going to help his family when he died, and it has enormously.
When I was 19, I got diagnosed with anxiety and depression, and I became suicidal as a result of that. I kept it all to myself, and then when I finally couldn't keep to myself anymore, I started speaking to my mates, to my family members, just to people who were around me, people who showed that they cared, and that made all the difference. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my mates, and I think that's something everyone can do for their mates.
I think the message of Are You Okay and Are You Really Okay is really pertinent at the moment, particularly because people might be carrying a lot of emotion themselves. I think it's really, you know, a vital message that we all at the moment take that time to check in with each other, because we are isolated, and see how we are really going. And the Are You Okay research was really vital in promoting that. You know, having those conversations and having them early helps people to feel more connected, to feel more supported, and to feel better about their situations.
One of the things that happens for me as a small business owner is that it can be incredibly lonely, and then amplified so much more because of a pandemic becomes a really stressful experience.
I guess to me, the importance of are they really okay, ask them today, is that if you're not sure or there's something that doesn't seem right, reach out. When we are at our lowest point, we're so good at hiding it. People say, but what if they say I'm okay? And if you're not sure, well, just ask them again. And just say, look, I am worried about you. I'm not convinced, or I'm just concerned. So ask the question, are you really okay? And look them in the eye when you ask them. That's where you'll get an answer.
First Nations, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people in Australia experience some of the highest suicide rates. A lot of our population can be in regional and remote areas and don't always have access to the service providers and support services that other locations might have. It's really important that we as Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander peoples are looking out for one another. We're having this Are You Okay conversation in our communities, around our kitchen tables, our campfires, and just really making sure that we're checking in on one another.
If I see my mates are a lot more withdrawn, if they're not coming to events that they normally would come to, they're not doing things that they love, like exercising and all that sort of stuff, it doesn't take much to say, hey, are you really okay? And then when you chime in with them, if they're ready to talk, then they will. And if they're not, they'll still appreciate the gesture.
My word for the year has been relentless. It just feels relentless. And how I get through that is really just surrounding myself with people who are champions. We're so well aligned in our own values. And I think that whole ethos of checking in on people and genuinely ask the question, are you really okay? Allows for that space to go, well, actually,
It's really important to ask, are you okay, in your own way. The way that we have conversations can differ, but really understanding the person that you're asking and being on that journey with them. So that's why when we talk about asking the question, you got to do it in your way, but the 4 simple steps to asking, are you okay? Which is number 1, ask. Number 2, listen. Number 3, encourage action. And number 4, check back in. So having an are you okay conversation can be continuous. It's really important that we don't just have a one-off conversation and then let it go, especially when we know that something's happening with somebody.
are they really okay? Ask them today.
Because a conversation could change a life.
It's not a confrontation, it's a question. It's an expression of concern.
Help seeking is a strength, not a weakness.
All we need to do is connect with someone and just talk.
Every day is an opportunity.
We know that from time to time, as individuals, we can struggle.
The foundations of our loved ones or the people around us or those people around them can change overnight.
Every day carries with it the possibility of another issue, another problem.
Being a wife and mother, the pressures were mounting and mounting.
I know that I'm pretty good at knowing my real emotions away behind a smile. I figured that if I'm good at hiding it, then most of you guys probably are too.
There is something that you guys can do. You can make a huge impact just by reaching out.
I know it would have taken me a lot longer to ask someone for help or to get help.
If you go in with an open heart, an open mind and open arms, you cannot do any wrong. You cannot make things any worse.
You're not expected to have all the answers. Just listening can be such a big help in itself.
You've got two things on the side of your head called ears. There, they could be life-saving.
We don't need to be a doctor or a philosopher or have any fancy letters after our names.
If someone just notices that something doesn't look okay, that can be that trigger moment that changes everything.
I think it's important to encourage action because some people don't know where to go. That step is just so important.
Are you okay? It's just a question and a conversation that needs to be had with like family members, friends, or even yourself sometimes, just to make sure that everyone's alright. It's just a simple thing to do.
When people have checked in with me, it's just made me feel like I have kind of a safety net.
By regularly checking in on another, I feel we might have more opportunity to share our feelings honestly.
It's just a very natural, normal thing to do, every single day.
There's always one person that may not realise, just how special a single moment can be.
What do you want to do? How can we get there? Let's do it together.
Welcome back. I hope that you've had a chance to rehydrate, have a little bit of movement, and if you did get to see some of those videos, it's hard to actually keep the right energy vibration because what we're talking about is such an important thing that can be really quite serious for people, but being around this event today and actually physically being with people, it's hard not to actually be a bit vibrant. So trying to just keep the tempo, the message is really important, and I hope that for whatever you might be feeling, if there's anything that we can do to support or help, please post a question in the chat box, and we have got the resources available to you as we've shared on the Fbaa website or within the link in your Zoom meeting. So what we're going to do now is move into the rest of the sessions for today. And I'd like to welcome Ash Playstead, who's joining us from Victoria. And he's a mindset fit coach. He'll be focusing on an Olympic team model, how and why building a team around you is essential for good mental and business health. To give you a bit of background, Ash is both a dedicated entrepreneur and mindset tactician who relentlessly pursues his higher calling. Ash has been creating business personally, plus continuously learning for more than 30 years, and is well known in inner circles as the secret weapon. In his own words, this is Ash. If you want to rapidly improve any facet of your life, it starts with building yourself a bulletproof mindset. While most coaches and instructors want to fundamentally spew out information, we work with what you have. So buckle yourselves in, and here's Ash's message for you today. Thank you.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for the introduction. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge all the other speakers here today. It is such an important cause, mental health generally, particularly acknowledge Are You OK and the Fbaa for coordinating this event. And a little bit about me, just before I go to my slideshow. My name is Ash Playstead, as you can see. I have been in the financial services industry my entire life, working life, which spans, this is my 39th year. The last 24, 25 years, particularly in mortgage broking, having started, built and exited multiple different mortgage businesses. I guess it's fair to say I've lived and breathed every aspect of the mortgage industry, the mortgage cycle from A to Z, finding customers, building a business, hiring people, winning the business, and building out volumes and teams to handle that volume, and then exiting the business at a later date. I've been coaching mortgage brokers pretty much my entire broking life, 25 years, but particularly as a professional coach the last few years. Now, obviously the subject matter today is very close to my heart, the mental health of brokers. It's really something I'm passionate about improving, and it's great to have the opportunity to be here with you all today. So if you just bear with me, I will now screen share my slideshow and get into my subject matter here. So will just give me 2 seconds while we screen share, and we'll wait for the magic of the internet to kick in. There we go. All right, so I want to talk today about something that we coach about in our broker coaching business called the 10X Broker, but in particular, it's relevant here today, and that is the Olympian model. Particularly relevant, of course, because we've just, it's going through the Olympics and Paralympics, and all of these individual people, all these sports people, all these athletes, whilst they are running in either individual or team events or competing in team events, it's not just them. As you guys would probably no doubt be aware, most athletes are always commenting and thanking and acknowledging the team of people around them. It's something that we put a bit of research into understanding what does the Olympian model of team look like for an Olympian athlete. And we found a heck of a lot of relevance and overlay to building a mortgage business and the structure that can be built around you to see you through that journey. So hence the Olympic rings on the screen. There's five areas of the team that I want to talk about briefly today. It is a team effort. That is my key theme, my key message, that building and maintaining good mental health and having the tools around you in order to self-correct when you need to, as we all move up and down this continuum of this thing we call mental health. So the five main teams, or the five teams that comprise the Olympic model team. Firstly, your inner, and I'll go into these in a little bit more detail on the next slide, but your inner team, that's essentially your mindset, that's yourself, that's what goes on inside your mind and your thoughts. There's your staff, that's essentially your business, people that work for you inside your business, both direct staff and suppliers. There's the person we call the confidant, that is the one. That's the person that you can tell anything to. Now, this can be a family member, a loved one, a partner, a friend, pretty much anybody who you have this total trust relationship with and you can tell anything to. Then we have what we call the club. That's essentially your community. So in sporting parlance, that would be your football club. In a Olympic athlete, that would be your other athletes training in your community and the wider support and club community. In our everyday life, that could be a social committee such as you know, your Apex or Rotaries. It could be a sporting body you're a part of. It can be you know, the mates that you hang out with on the golf course on a Saturday, or that you go walking with every day. This is your community that is built around you. And then the last one, the fifth, is what we're calling advice. This is your strategic team. This is the people around you that coach, guide, point you in the right direction, that have got the expertise, the specific skill set, the lived experience to help you build out the strategy that is going to most effectively get you to your goals, whatever those goals may be. So they are the 5 teams that make up the Olympic model, or the Olympian model. Now, if we go to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit more in depth about each of these 5 teams. And then I want to draw the discussion to a bit of a summary that I hope makes sense to everybody. So I said earlier that the first part of the 5 teams is you. This is the inner. And this is what we would summarize as your mindset, your self-talk, how you speak to yourself, you know, that inner critic, you know, what's the relationship you have inside your own head with yourself? And then what about the stories that we tell ourselves about the experiences, as I've said there, the response we have to events as opposed to the event themselves. The key thing here is, what are the stories we tell ourselves about the events in our lives, whether they be little things or big things? That's a really important of your inner team, is how you pivot to stories you tell yourself about what happens to you rather than what actually happens to you. And then the last one I'm calling a strategy and purpose. So this is the alignment between what drives you as an individual, what your sort of true nature is as a person, what motivates you, and the strategy that you're pursuing as a business. You know, is it just about money, or is it about having an impact? Is it about freeing up time to spend more time with your family or loved ones, or on other causes that you're passionate about? How do all these things align together, and is the strategy that you're pursuing aligned with your purpose? So that's the inner team, number one. Number two, the people in your business, so your team. Okay, so there's things, big picture subject matter here, such as culture and values. Now, these are super important things that are generally the result of going through a process to build the right people in your team, as opposed to building a culture without people and then trying to attract people to that culture. So generally, culture and values are what's important to you as a business owner. You know, what do you communicate to your team about how you go about your business? What is it that you're trying to achieve? Obviously, clients are at the center of that. We know that. You're building everything around a client-centric approach. But what are the values that are important to you and your team about feeling needed, feeling purposeful, feeling valued and recognized, and being able to contribute in a non-judgmental way to the decision-making and the structure of the business? What is the culture around those things from you as a leader? How do you manage delegation and trust? You know, what systems and processes have you got in place in your business to be able to delegate and completely trust your team to perform their duty, but also to have some performance management structures in place to, you know, for staff to know that there is accountability and responsibility to performing to a certain standard. And then there's another part of this that I call unconscious motivators. Is what are you doing with your team when you bring team on, or if you've already got them, to truly understand what motivates that person as an individual? Because often when you hire people, I'll tell you, I think we'd all be or have had experience of this, is what people tell you is often what they think you need to hear in order for them to get the job. But what actually motivates them as a person is hidden beneath. So do you have a process to really get to the heart of what motivates your staff? Are they motivated by money? Are they motivated by recognition? Are they extroverted or introverted? Do they like prestige, or do they like being a cog in the machine? Are they salespeople, entrepreneurial, or are they more operators and technicians? What is it that motivates your team? It's really important to know when you're building a team that you attract and engage the right people based on understanding how they work together with other team members and you. That's a very important part of building the right mindset, the right mental health framework inside your business. Now, the next one, the confidant. This is a really interesting one. I think it's very important in life to have one person, maybe a couple of people, that you feel that you can tell anything to. Now, this can be your partner, this can be your friend, this can be a non-family member, this could be someone who is a coach, potentially. It could be a lifelong friend. It's any of those. That is somebody who you can tell everything to in a non-judgmental way, but who also not just listen to you, they'll cheerlead for you, but they'll also be honest with you. And they'll also hold you accountable. They're the one that you can go to when you're feeling vulnerable, or that you've got ideas that you're not sure about, but you can just have those really honest discussions in a private framework where you know that what you say to that person is held in complete trust, almost like a confessional, if you like. Not that I've ever been to confession, but that confessional type relationship where you can tell anything to the other person and get some feedback and just be listened to. And often they can see potentially what you're blind to. They can see your blind spots. Then we've got the club. So the club, again, a really interesting one. This is the community of people around you. These are the people that you feel like you're part of something bigger. This is the group that you work together with. Now, in the mortgage industry, it can be very lonely, right? Even though it's a big industry and there's lots of participants and stakeholders, we all know that as you're out there trying to get a business up and running and, cover your bills, make money, provide for your family, look after your customers and deal with all of the day-to-day requirements and challenges in the industry, very difficult to feel isolated and alone. So it's very, very important to have this community, this wider community of other mortgage brokers, people that you can communicate with on the same level. Outside of the mortgage industry, of course, a good example would be a sporting club. I call it the third world. You've got your home life, you've often got your business life, but what is your other life, your third life, which is your community? Now, for some people, that's a sporting group. For some people, that's charity. For some, it's being part of a social cause. For others, it could be an exercise group. You've only got to go out on any given weekend and see all the people riding bikes together or jogging together. Pre-COVID, obviously, but hopefully we get back to those times sooner rather than later, where you've got a common interest, and it can be non-business in that environment, but it can also have business overlay as well. But I know, for me personally, mine's always been sporting, and to a later part of life, it's almost like the cafe culture where you see the same people and you have these conversations and you feel part of a community, socially connected. They're really important to build a community. I know we're going through these difficult times with everything being Zoom based, but it's still important to build relationships, and we are in the relationship industry. But importantly, for yourself, for your mental health, your club or your community around you forms a very important part of your overall team framework. Then lastly, we've got the advice. This is the strategic advice to keep you on track based on real experience. It's an honest, expertise-based relationship with either coaches or business connections or other external support structures that are fully aware of your business goals, and they're there to help you map out the right strategy and stay on track to that strategy, to achieve your goals. Now, an example of this would be, you know, if you're wanting to get fit or lose weight, or you know, build a six-pack. It's not that difficult to work out what you've got to do, right, in order to achieve the outcome. But the bit that is often forgotten is having somebody there with you, almost that personal trainer who's aware of your goals, who can keep you on track, who is not emotionally connected and biased because they're standing a little bit apart. So it's a very important part of having the right team together to keep your mental health on an equilibrium, that if you get off track, that you can always turn to your strategic advisor to stay on track. And they also should be very, very good at keeping you on the right path amongst all the paths that you could follow, or the one path, as I've called it here. And they also are the anti-SOS. They should be the SOS cure. And if you're wondering what SOS stands for, it is shiny object syndrome, which is often where we end up when we're getting, you know, multiple directions, multiple bits of advice and suggestions, and being pulled this way and that as to what we should do. Having the right strategic advisor can help you stay really focused and on track. So I hope that really makes sense. I'd like to now just quickly summarise with a couple of drawings, and if you'll bear with me, I will attempt to draw on the page, just bear with me, a bit of a summary. So we know that we've got the inner, we spoke about, we've got the staff, we've got the community, we've got your confidant, and we've got your strategic advisor, right? Now that's your team, the 5 rings, the 5 teams. But here's the thing, it's always still going to be you that runs the race, right? You've got all of these support structures, right? But we know it's still you that's running the race, okay? That's critical. But very important to have a team around you. You could think of a lot of different examples of where this applies, whether it's a golfer, a tennis player, an athlete. It applies equally to a business owner. You need a team of people around you fulfilling different functions in order for you to run the race to the best of your ability. And the race here is very, very strongly connected to your mental health. So if we were to put this little line in here, you know, here's the race, you still have to run. You run the race, but the team behind you is part of your support team that ensures that you do that most effectively and with your mental health on a balanced equilibrium. And lastly, but not leastly, that's a word, we want to represent your mental health and performance outcomes with the 5 teams and without. You know, you try to do this on your own, which I'm sure you've all experienced, you're essentially looking at this type of outcome, right? Whereas if you do it with the support team, with people around you that you can turn to, your own mindset is properly built, your staff on board, the culture's right, the values right, the purpose is right, you've got the right people in your business, you've got your community, and you've got your advisor. So you've got your team around you. Well, the difference is, yes, you still have dips, but you're in this direction. It's a big difference between having peaks and troughs moving upwards versus peaks and troughs moving downwards. So I thought I would just leave it with that simple summary. When you get the 5 teams around you with the same skill and knowledge, this is not about having better skills or better knowledge, this is about having the right support structure that supports good mental health. We go this direction versus the other direction. So the Olympian model, I hope you got some good tips out of this and some direction to go forward with starting to build your Olympian model team. I'm more than happy to answer questions at the end if anybody has any. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ash, and what a great perspective to be thinking about how to set yourself up for success when it comes to personal life and business. I love the Olympian Model theme, and I think off the back of the Olympics that we've just seen and the Paralympics, what a fantastic way to take an approach, and talking about the importance of having the right people in your corner. I think that the standout that many of us would agree from the Olympics was Ariane Titmus and her coach Dean and his reaction. And when she was interviewed after one of her gold medal swims, and she said that she did that swim for him because of that journey, that 5-year journey. And Ash talked about taking performance from one level to another, and Dean could see something for her that she couldn't. So amazing to get the right people set up to help you achieve what you want. And speaking of the right people, it is with great pleasure that I introduce our next speaker, Joanna James from Mortgage Easy. Joanna will be speaking about how to silence your inner critic, something I'm very interested in listening to. Joanna's career began as a registered architect and builder. However, life took a 180-degree turn more than 20 years ago when she decided to bring her unique talents into the mortgage market area. Working across all facets of Mortgage Easy, she was one of the founding directors when the company changed its course to lending in the year 2000. Seen as a breath of fresh air, which I'm sure you'll agree, her creative abilities have held her in good stead in the areas of innovation, design, and technology. She actively sets out to create an environment where creativity and logic go hand in hand, empowering diverse teams and mentoring future managers. Joanna's contribution to the industry was recognised this year in the Women in Finance Awards when she was awarded Principal of the Year, an outstanding achievement. So it's a great pleasure that I welcome Joanna James from Mortgage Easy. Come and join us.
Thank you so much, Renee. Thank you so much. So it is my absolute pleasure to be with you today. And in fact, I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to speak about the importance of how to silence your inner critic. Now, we've listened to so many amazing speakers today and lots of fantastic ideas and tips. But the first thing I want to ask all of you that we're connected for the next 20 minutes is about the importance of honesty. So I'm going to ask all of you, if you could take a moment, please, to ask yourself, are you ready to get real and raw with yourself in the next 20 minutes of this content? If you are, could you please make a declaration for me into the chat box? Because intention is everything. It's very, very important in life. And I'd love to see that everybody's willing to really have those honest moments with yourself. Okay, so the question I've got to ask all of you is, in the last month, who has heard yourself say something to yourself like this? I'm no good. I can't do it. I can't manage the stress. I'm not able to pull this off. I don't deserve it. I won't be able to do things properly. I'm not pretty. I've put on weight. People don't know that I'm a fraud. If you have, then chances are you've been listening to the sound of your inner critic. Now, most of the people that I meet on the face of the planet have, at some point in time, come across this voice. So the question that we need to ask today is, where does this voice come from? Why is it that as human beings, we have this incredibly destructive, and I mean nasty, my inner critic is downright nasty voice that comes out to play at very key points in our life? Where does it come from? Why does this happen? So as you can see, there's a beautiful baby on the screen, and we all start life pure and innocent, wouldn't you agree? Think back to your own journey in life. Remember how you were as a child, that blissful innocence, that life was magical and that you had everything in front of you. So what happens as we grow? As we move through life, we go to school, we grow up, we have ambitions of a wonderful life. What is it that changes in our mind to create the voice of the inner critic? Well, to answer this properly, we must ask ourselves, where do our beliefs actually come from? Sounds like a simple question, and yet it took me many, many years of my life to be able to answer the question clearly. Where do our beliefs actually come from? So the truth is that we all have three parts to our mind. I have no idea why it's not taught in school, but it's not. We have our conscious mind, which is the mind that you're using today. It's the mind that you're using to listen to what I'm saying, process the information, consider and make decisions about whether what I'm saying to you is something that you are choosing to take into your reality. However, we have 95% of the results of our life come from our subconscious mind. Our subconscious mind is a place where things happen automatically. It's when we're driving the car and we don't have to think about it. It's the mind that has our heart beating many times a second that keeps us alive. So 95% of our reality is created from our subconscious mind. And yet many people, like me, go through life believing that our conscious mind is the one that's actually driving the car. The third mind that we have is our superconscious mind. And this is where our subconscious mind, our conscious mind aligns and we connect into a universal energy field. Could be described by many as a feeling of being in flow. Now, there's a lot of information out there, and I'm sure lots of people have talked about the subconscious mind, and you've heard all of this before. And yet there was one defining piece of information that I came to understand that I'd like to share with you all today. The subconscious mind has no filters. It simply takes everything in, whether it's true or not. That's right. Every conversation, everything you see, everything you hear, every experience in your life is coming into your subconscious mind and going into that part of you where you will decide whether it becomes a part of your reality, whether it's true or not. So when we're talking about the inner critic, where do these thoughts actually come from? Well, the truth is they actually come from places not from you. They come from our families. They come from our education systems. They come from society. They also come from social media. That's right. Every time you pick up your phone and you're scrolling through the pages, every single image, thought, or idea is coming into your reality. So the first thing we need to understand when how to silence our inner critic is to actually understand that many of the things that we're saying to ourselves have not come from you. And yet they formed a voice inside your mind that is telling you what to do or what not to do a lot of the time. Now, why is this so important? There's a formula on the screen here. And once again, this is core education for every human being. The P in this formula stands for paradigms. And we all have paradigms that we live our life by. It's the lens, it's the experience, it's how we see the world. Our paradigms feed the quality of our thoughts. The quality of our thoughts feeds the quality of our feelings. And the quality of our feelings feeds our behavior, and our behavior feeds our actions. And ultimately speaking, this process that we go through as human beings creates the life outcomes that we experience. Now, remember before, I said it's very important to start to ask yourself, where is this coming from? And is this actually true? So when I look at the formula on the screen, I know this to be true. How do I know that this formula is true? That the paradigms of our life create our thoughts, add to our feelings, create our behavior, create our actions, and create the outcomes of our life. This is a picture of me 20 years ago. It's a little bit fuzzy around the edges. And in fact, at that point in my life, life was a little bit fuzzy too. I had just had the birth of my first child. I was suffering postnatal depression. And what happened for me was simply this. The paradigm or my view of life at that time was not particularly constructive. And I started thinking that there was something wrong with me. I started thinking that I was no good. I started thinking that things would not get better. I started thinking that things would never change. What do those thoughts do? They fueled my already deep, dark depression. They fueled feelings of grief, of panic, of anxiety, of stress. At that point in my life, we had just moved interstate. I had withdrawn from my family. I was not communicating with friends. I was not meeting new people. In fact, I'd become quite isolated and very lonely. The action that I took was to grab a handful of pills and decide to put myself to sleep. So I know that this methodology, in fact, is the process that I went through. Now, luckily for me, it was more of a cry for help than a suicide. However, this event taught me something very important in my life. The first thing that I realized was the more I denied the voice of my inner critic, the greater she became. I would cut off the head of the Medusa. I would want to deny that it was happening for me. I would feel guilt and shame that I was having these thoughts about myself. And the more that I did that, the more that she grew and the more of a monster she became. And so I realized that I had to do something different. And I had to create what I call the inner ally. This was a new process for me. Now, how did I do it? The inner ally is the voice that whispers in your ear and tells you that you are living life in a physical body. We must look after our physicality, eating well, sleeping well, having exercise. That was the first thing that I did. I took care of my physicality so that I had a basis for support. The second thing that the inner ally helped me with was she helped me set safety boundaries. At that point in my life, I set a rule for myself. I would not go to sleep at night if I was in a distressed state. Why? Because I was guaranteed to have nightmares, which would perpetuate broken sleep, which would perpetuate more of the cycle for me. So even if I had to stay up an extra hour or an extra hour or two, I would make sure that I kept that safety boundary and I had an inner ally in my ear that was telling me how important it was to do. The inner ally is the one that when the inner critic comes out to play, she whispers in your ear and she says, "Is that really true?" And what I realized is a lot of the things that I was hearing in my mind had absolutely no evidence to be founded on at all, with the exception that I had told myself it was true. The inner ally is the one that helped me reframe. So as I would hear things like, "You were useless today," that would be reframed through to, "I had some areas to improve today, but I'm doing so much better than yesterday." The inner ally, and this is where she really began to grow, where I really understood the importance of affirming who you are and who you want to become in life. So everybody talks about affirmations. It's a very common buzzword, but few people understand what's important about affirmations and what they can do for you. So your inner ally is something that you build over time, and it's a part of yourself that you must affirm. I am beautiful. I am courageous. I am brave. I am competent. I am capable. I am safe. These are the things that we must tell ourselves. And yet there's one important thing to understand. When you're saying the affirmations, it's also about your feelings. Now, for myself, that was a difficult journey because I wasn't feeling particularly positive all the time. But I had to force myself to repeat again and again the things I wanted to create in my life. And the power of affirming who you want to become and what you want to create is how you will create an inner ally that is much stronger than your inner critic. And finally, what's very important to understand is that if you're anything like me and you had 30 years of saying certain things to yourself, understand that it's going to take some time to rewire that. You cannot reverse 30 years in 3 days. It takes, as they say, repetition is the mother of all learning. And so at that point in time, as I said before, I had a very fuzzy mind. I was having difficulty recalling what I needed to know. I was finding it challenging when I was in professional situations, unable to recall what I needed to say. And so for a whole year, every single day, I would walk in the morning and I would say to myself, I know exactly what to say and do in the right way at the right time. 365 days it took for me to build some new neural pathways that were stronger than the critical beliefs I had had before, that my memory was no good and that I couldn't recall what I needed to. So understanding that this is a process that we go through. And if you are having conversations today and asking people, are they okay? Aside from the incredible resources that you've heard today about groups that can support them, understand that they might be suffering just as I did at the hand of their inner critic. And in fact, there was nothing wrong with me. I was just suffering at the programming of what my inner critic was telling me. And this is something that can bring people great comfort that there is hope. Because as John Arison once said, you must be very careful what you say because someone very important is listening, and that is you. So thank you so much for having me here today. I really wish everybody the best with where you are in life, and understand that it is entirely possible to change and to take control of your life, to silence your inner critic and build your inner ally. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. Wow, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the story that Joanna shared. And the first thing I'd like to say is if any of her information has stirred anything in you and you'd like to talk to someone, please call on the resources that are available. And the second thing that I'd like to say to Joanna is you are absolutely brave, you are absolutely courageous, and you are 100% safe in this environment, and you are extraordinary. So thank you for sharing that incredible story. Something about the inner critic that I heard once that was really helpful to me, finishing on Joanna's quote, was if you imagine some of the things that you say to yourself on a daily basis and imagine a picture of you as a child, would you say those same things to that picture of you as a child? Because that is the spirit of who you are, and it still exists today. And that saved on my phone for some time was some pictures of me as a child to help me stop saying such hurtful things to myself. So how awesome was that session? And I really hope you got a lot out of it. It is with great pleasure that I welcome Nicolette Spicer from Assure. Now, Nicolette's actually presenting on behalf of Suncorp, who are the wellness sponsor for today. And some of you may know my history with Suncorp, so I'm very passionate about what Suncorp do in their partnership for the Fbaa and the broker community. Nicolette has a Bachelor of Science in Sports Science and over 20 years relationship management experience. She's been with Assure for 8 years and has partnered with many blue chip clients, including managing the wellbeing programs for many organisations. Suncorp's purpose is around building futures and protecting what matters, and they've been doing this in the broker community for over 25 years. The Wellness Partnership is an extremely important part of the Suncorp proposition, and Nicolette's going to be talking to us today about the resources that are available and how that support will help you. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Nicolette.
Thank you so much, Renee, for that beautiful introduction. Excuse me while I just put my water down. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Congratulations, Fbaa, on running such a magnificent event. As a proud health promoter, it makes me so happy to know that you guys are sitting in and listening, and we're showcasing the importance of mental health. And on this day, the 9th of September, encouraging everyone to reach out to someone to ask them how they're going, not just how you're going, how are you really going? And the beautiful part of this conversation is that it encourages us to reach out every single day, not just today, but every day. Anytime you notice that someone has a change in their behaviour, they're looking sluggish, they seem sad, their head's down, they're slumped over, they seem overwhelmed or disconnected, to be able to say, mate, I'm a little bit worried about you, how's it going? And then to be able to listen without judgment, encourage them to get in touch, and then to be able to follow up. I just congratulate all of you for being part of today. Now, as Renee said, I work for Assure Programs, and Suncorp have opened the opportunity to enable you guys, everyone on this call, all brokers, to be able to access free confidential counselling to talk about anything that's bothering you, whether it be workplace or personal concerns. It's available to you. It is also available to your family members. And we know it's okay to not be okay. Let's call it for what it is. COVID has thrown us into a spin, a huge spin. Even the people who appear to have it all together quite often don't. And I can put my hand on my heart. I've worked in the wellbeing industry for many, many years. It's made me really anxious, and it's absolutely impacted my resilience. So I just think, you know what? What better thing to do today than to give you a couple of awesome tips on how to build your resilience. And I know Joe just gave you some wonderful tips, as have the other speakers too. Now, Assure Programs, we've been around for 30 years. We've got 1,200 psychologists who work for us. When I say psychologists, I'm talking about mental health professionals who've dedicated their lives to helping people. They're not judgy. They're really kind. They're compassionate. They've heard it all before. So if you sitting on this call are thinking, you know what, I am struggling a little bit, please ring. The number to call is 1800 808 374. It's 24/7. This service is private and confidential. At no time will anyone ever know that you have access. It is like a huge weight being lifted off your shoulder. In times gone by, we offered face-to-face counselling. We need to be nimble like everybody else, like everybody on this call. We've moved our counselling to Zoom, Teams, all those other virtual platforms, and you can also talk on the telephone. You can talk to someone in the middle of the night. So for people like me who are beautiful daytime copers, everything's going beautifully, but then my anxiety kicks in the night. 3 o'clock might be the time that I would then reach out and want to call someone to have a chat to them. 365 days a year, anything that is bothering you. One other beautiful aspect to this great service provision is that the counselling is holistic. Yes, we have counselling with qualified psychologists, but we also have access to nutritionists and also access to a lawyer to talk about legal concerns as well. So that is all included and funded by Suncorp. Do you know what? Half of us on this call, including me, will suffer from some form of mental illness, 50% in our lifetime, 20% in this year. And to be honest, I think that those statistics are actually underreported. Last year, we partnered with about 700 organisations and look after maybe 1.5 million individuals. Last year, the levels of anxiety had skyrocketed with COVID. And now we're finding that people's levels of resilience is really low. People are exhausted. They're so fatigued. It's really hard. There's a sense of hopelessness. And I think to myself, you know what? Let's just admit it's okay to not be okay. And I just love the fact in Pete's session that those beautiful ladies were admitting vulnerability, because it just makes us all go, oh, God, good. I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one having a hard time. I'm not the only one struggling. You are not alone. The best thing you can do is look after yourself. We'll talk about that in a minute, but also be confident and compassionate in reaching out to others. Now, the psychologists at work always talk about the mental health continuum. And I think, you beauty, what a great way to explain mental health on this continuum. So at one end, in the red zone, languishing, having a really hard time. Some people are at risk of self-harm. They're thinking of taking their life. Like, it is absolutely awful for them. We need to help them. We need to help them straight away. That's why we need you guys to be the eyes and ears to look out for them, to suggest that they get some professional assistance. You know, up that continuum, we might fluctuate on this continuum like on a daily basis, maybe weekly, monthly, yearly. It doesn't matter. We're all on it. Up to the middle where you're just coping, you're feeling okay, you're not as sharp as what you normally are, you're not getting as, you know, the best sleep, you're not always making wise nutritional choices. Yeah, you're forgetting some things, but you're just getting by, just good enough. Don't Don't let yourself slip down into that red zone, into that languishing zone. That would be a time to go and enlist the support of a professional to talk about, maybe reframing, maybe initiating some self-care activities to get yourself up to the zone we all want to be in, which is around thriving and flourishing, looking the goods, feeling amazing, eating the right food, hanging out with cool people who drag you up, who give you a laugh, sitting out in the sun for 20 minutes, doing a little bit of ballroom dancing, booking in a holiday and going crab pot fishing. Just remember one of my friends at the back was telling me about crab pots. I'm not too sure exactly what that is. I'm not a fisherwoman myself, but I think it might be a hobby that I actually engage in. We'll talk about the importance of getting a hobby in a minute. But just to reiterate, the mental health continuum, it just puts it really simply and just explains we can fluctuate. All of us do. And, some of us pretend we're 10 foot tall and bulletproof and pretend we're flourishing and thriving. Please, if you're struggling, just reach out for some help. We'd love to be able to help you. It's all about developing our resilience. Some of us are born with that grit and we can just get through tough times. And I love meeting someone who's come from a hard background and a hard time and they're just striving. They've got that grit, they're resilient, but they also have features where they're able to change their mindset, change their behaviour, reach out for support when the need be, and are really able to develop that resilience. So it's something that we can modify and adapt rather than just being a sook in the corner going, oh, it's all too hard. COVID's wrecked everything. I'm isolated. I can't see my family. I hate working from home. Get on the front foot and just initiate some pillars of well-being, which I'm looking forward to talking about in a minute. In order to build your resilience, though, you need to know what your triggers are. You need to understand what stress is, why we get stressed. I mean, it's different for everybody, but basically a stress is your interpretation of a threat. And years gone by, I mean, I don't know how long ago, I wasn't very good at history, but a saber-toothed tiger would be seen as a threat and there would be fight or flight. You'd either fight the tiger or you'd run away. And basically it locks off your frontal lobe, the reptilian part of your brain comes into play and you've got two options, run or fight, okay? So it's basically that we still have that same reaction to something that we believe is a stress or is threatening us. And what happens is you can lose your memory, your blood pressure can increase, you can feel crook in the guts, you can do shallow breathing. Thank God we had Renee just before my session teaching us about that deep diaphragmatic breathing. So important that you learn to do that because the power of the breath helps us think more clearly. Other people will have other signs and symptoms of stress. Some of us wake up in the middle of the night. Some people can't remember their PIN number or whether or not they caught a newbie here or if they parked their car on Ipswich Road. I mean, it doesn't matter. But basically, to be aware of what your signs and symptoms are. So important to self-reflect, to take a moment to say, you know what, okay, I'm in lockdown, I'm having a hard time. I haven't seen my loved ones. I don't know what's going to happen for Christmas. But just to be able to reframe is so important. The best way we can do it is to breathe. And it's so simple and all of us can do it. And just as Renee explained, as you're sitting or standing in a really comfortable position, lowering your shoulders, and it's just a couple of seconds, 4 seconds breathing in, hold it and breathe it out. But do it on repeat so that you have a clear head. You have the ability to be more rational with your thinking and your coping. It's going to help you sleep better. It's going to help you feel better. And you know what? If you're having a difficult conversation with a lender on the phone, you're less inclined to tell them where to go. Just go, okay, I've got you, no worries. The power of the breath. And reframing. Now, Joe talked about this. You know, stressful things happen, awful things happen, but it's so important to be able to flip your mindset. Just be able to flip it. So COVID, for example, so many people have struggled, levels of anxiety have been high, levels of resilience have been low. It's been terrible. But for those of us who had a resilient, more of a resilient mindset, we're able to say, okay, sweet, I get to work from home. I'm going to wear business clothes up the top and I'm going to wear my board shorts down below. You beauty. I'm going to be able to spend more time with my family. I don't have to sit in heavy traffic. I'm going to learn my neighbours' names. I'm going to make a casserole for the old lady down the road. Being able to flip your mindset. Now, it's really easily said because when you're in the depths of despair or feeling anxious or depressed, it's hard to get yourself out. you know what? You have access to the awesome clinicians who can help you reframe. All about wellbeing coaching, helping you go from good to great, push you, if you're in that red zone, push you up that mental health continuum. Now, this is one of my favourite things. Create some distance, create some space where you can detach from first space, which is work. So I know you guys all work super hard and you're sitting in the office at the back. I know how hard everybody is working. Everyone's on their laptop and still having friendly conversations. It's that commitment to the cause of what you do. But it's also really important that you're able to detach. So first space is obviously work. Second space is home. How can you move effectively from one space to the other? Well, you know what? Getting into the third space is awesome. So I've got a husband. He's from Melbourne. I'm from Melbourne. The way that he distances himself from the workday is to take off his suit and put on his Hawthorn shorts. Now, that bloke's been wearing those Hawthorn shorts. I don't even know where Hawthorn are on the AFL ladder. I suspect not that high up, but he's so committed, and that's his way of getting into the third space. Some people can just shut off their laptop, shut the office door, get into the third space and just happily transition across to then enjoy recreational pursuits. Spend time with loved ones, talk to people who drag them up, engage in a hobby, whatever it is for you. Please make sure that you have that time every single day. Only have to have like a 20-minute window of engaging in an activity that gives you joy, to help you relax, to be calm, and maybe do a little bit of self-care. So back to the resilience. How can we actually increase it? Well, I've got a couple of tips, and one of my favourites is getting a good night's sleep. Now, I'm a little bit of a nana, go to bed at 8:30. I do a little bit of breathing, similar again to what Renee did, call it Wim Hof, and it helps sends me off to restorative slumber. But I'll make sure my bedroom temperature is 24 degrees. I've got a little night lamp. I know I sound like a dog, but I am. I go to bed at that same time so that I can pay it forward and get up early. So if anyone's struggling, I mean, not that you have to go to bed at 8:30, but make sure you set a routine so you get to bed at a reasonable hour instead of watching Ozark on Netflix till the wee hours of the morning. Adopt some healthy habits and put some frameworks in place, because then you're going to feel amazing by the time you get up in the morning. And I think, right, I get up in the morning nice and early, up with the sun if you can, do a bit of exercise. Everybody scheduled in this time to be part of this awesome session today. And I think to myself, hopefully everybody has a 30-minute window in which they're doing some cardiovascular exercise, a little bit of huff and puff. And it doesn't mean it sprinting or doing hard F45 classes. It might be walking to the shops, carrying your shopping home, taking the dog for a walk. Maybe it's a little bit of yoga. Whatever you do, make sure that you have your 30 minutes of cardiovascular strength-based or stretching activity in your day, every single day. Mastery. For those of us in lockdown who had a hard time, one great way from the psychs at work was a suggestion that you learn a new skill. So for me, as again sounds really daggy, a TikTok dance. My kids are horrified, but I've learnt 4 cool moves that I can dance to, not well, but it gives me joy. They're really saddened by it, but I just think, you know what, you beauty. And other people I know have learnt the words to Vanilla Ice, Ice, Ice Baby, and able to sing that. Some people have learnt a whole new repertoire of cooking. Some people start macrame, knitting. Whatever it is that's important to you, make sure that you're able to focus on mastering the skill. Maybe learn a new language. Diet. Now, always hammer Leah about the drinking of water, and she promises me she has 2 litres of H2O every single day. Everybody on this call, you need to be optimising your hydration with water, not cordial, not weak tea. It needs to be water. It is so important for you. And I think if nothing else, make sure that you get that water in. And it's hard, I know, because you have a couple of coffees in the morning. Some people are into the energy drinks. You've got to cut them out. Just make sure you have water at the ready. Even Pete at the back had a really impressive blue water bottle. And I think, yes, makes me so happy to see all of this. Optimise your hydration and make sure you have your 2 bits of fruit, your 5 vegetables. You shop from the outside at the supermarket, shop with a list. Don't shop when you're hungry. Make strong nutritional choices. It is so important that you fuel your body with the right kind of stuff. And then learning to relax, have a bath, burn a candle, listen to some nice music, engage in just some mindfulness. There's so many apps available as well, but you also need to have just that time of just being present, breathing, just learning to relax, just to help reduce those levels of stress. Because I promise you, they're going to help you when it comes to trying to get yourself back up that good, solid end of the mental health continuum. There'll be signs and symptoms that are presented to all of us. Our body is the music, you need to listen to it. We will give ourselves those signs. Don't close off to it. Don't busy yourself in things that are really important. Don't continue scrolling on the Instagram, and I'm guilty of it, when it's time for bed. Be firm, get to bed and try and engage in that restorative sleep. Things to look for too: low energy, interrupted sleep, mood swings, withdrawing from key people that you love. They're signs that you're struggling. You must look after yourself first and foremost before you can reach out to anybody else to ask them how they're going. Maybe you're just starting to lose interest in things that you typically love or that you find engaging. They're signs that you're not going well. And feeling, the psychs use this word, meh. I can't be bothered, I'm really tired, I'm exhausted. It hits all of us. And you know what? Just a little episode of it, no drama. But if it goes on for a couple of weeks, you need to get in touch with a professional. So before we can reach out to others, which is this beautiful messaging around today, you've got to look after yourself. If you need any help, we got you. We're there for you, whether it be with a psychologist or a wellbeing coach. We're there. It's free. It's provided to you and your family members. When reaching out to others, as everybody else has covered this, so I just want to reiterate it one more time. Look for a change in behaviour of that person that you hold dear. Make the time, good solid time to check in with them. And use the language, I think Pete said it, use the language that works for you. What's going on for you, buddy? Are you all right? Don't have to use that typical, are you okay? Use the messaging that really resonates and works for you. Listen to their response. Don't fill in silence. Listen to what they've got to say. Share your own story if you want to. Encourage them to get in touch. For you guys, you can call us 1-800-808-374, 24/7, non-judgmental, kind, compassionate, beautiful psychologists who just would love to help you. The other key is to follow up as well. Once you've done all those pillars and I've noticed that you're not yourself, I'm a little bit worried, here's the number, get in touch. Make sure you go back and check in and follow up with them. Sometimes, people will be, no, I'm fine. What are you worried about? Trust your gut. Okay, you don't have to be a psychologist to think, no, if you don't think they're right, you check in at another time and dig a little bit deeper. Share more stories. Ask them more about what's going on. Be empathetic and then just say there's help available. It's really good. It's cool and it's worthwhile. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Nicolette. And if that doesn't tell you how much the support from Suncorp, choosing the Assure team, are there to look after you and your family members, the quality of service and support that you receive is second to none. There was so much good information there. The two things that sang out for me were to pay it forward to yourself in the morning with sleep, because whilst I know all the information about how important sleep is, sometimes I can just feel like I'm going to miss out on something amazing that might happen in the evening. So thinking about paying it forward to myself is something I'm going to take away. And our body is the music. Listen to it. Thanks, Nicolette. They were awesome tips. So now, to change things up, I would like to introduce our next speaker. Alex Brudak is going to be talking about being real and how that can change a life. You may know Alex. He's got 20 years of leadership experience across the financial services industry, from leading multinational, multi-product and multi-channel corporations to fintech startups, with a strong track record of building brand, strategy and distribution that delivers sustainable growth in challenging and competitive markets. Alex is a vibrant speaker and brings such great energy, and it is awesome to have him tuning in to us today from Sydney. So with no further ado, I'd like to welcome Alex.
Okay, hey Renee, how you going? I'm back now. My webcam isn't working again. I tested it before and it doesn't seem to want to work. So I'm going to stick with this camera up here. Hang on, it's back. I'm going to stick to this one. I'm not touching my laptop. Last time I put myself on flight mode with my fat fingers. So I'm just going to look at you guys up here. Hopefully you can see me. Welcome to my house. I started talking about it before. I'm in Southwest Sydney. I wish I could be there. I'm in one of those areas of concern. So we were the first area of concern and therefore went into a very hard LGA, which is a common acronym we hear about a lot now, lockdown. And it's been nearly 3 months. 3 months since I've had a haircut. And the longest hair I've ever had, I think the record I normally do is like 3 weeks. So my hairdresser's going to get a shock hopefully later next month when things are looking like to start to reopen, fingers crossed. But I hope you're all really doing well. I want to thank Whitey, the Fbaa team, Mariah, and also Renee for amazing emceeing, having me here today. I want to take the opportunity to talk about being real and how being real can actually change a person's life. It sounds a little bit dramatic, but can even save a life. For those people who do know me, and I've met, you know, many brokers around the country, they'll know that I'm quite consistent, generally very authentic, always real. And it's something that I really pride myself in. And I think when we look at the sentiment of what Are You Okay is, I love the theme this year. Are you really okay? That sentiment of being real and Nicolette, thanks for jumping in as well, short notice. I don't even feel that bad because we're all getting used to these hiccups these days. So, but I appreciate you stepping in. But I loved what you shared there about being really authentic, and that's what I want to tap into today. And by the way, I also got into the TikToks, which I actually enjoyed. I don't know if my kids enjoyed it. The first time was a novelty, and then after that, it became quite a nuisance to them, which I enjoyed even more. But it's really great to mix things up, especially since we're lacking a lot of variety with the restrictions that we've had. So I want to share before one tip that I've had, and it sort of falls in theme of what a number of the other speakers have had. And for those who have ever worked with closely with me, they know I've got this thing with my one-on-ones that I've done in the past, where I put the location as 5,000 steps, rather than doing a Zoom or booking a meeting room. Not that a lot of us are working in offices right now, but the sentiment or the idea of having the location as 5,000 steps is, that's crudely speaking, an hour's worth of walking, not running, and not a real brisk walk. It's anyone who's walked with me, it's Alex walk, which is quite steady. 5,000 steps in an hour, and what that does is it just makes you feel a lot less vulnerable, more open to conversation because you're out talking and, you know, moving. So generally getting those juices flowing helps you articulate how you feel about certain things, and so it's something I would encourage you all to think about at some stage. And even now I do a lot of my meetings where we agree to go walking around the block while we're talking. So something worth exploring. But for today, I'm just want to share something with you just quickly. So I want you to think about this scenario, which is hopefully that's coming through right now to you. So I want you all to think of a time where you've just met someone. Now, you might barely know them, never met them before, or vaguely know them, and you're in a position where all of a sudden they share something really personal, really private with you. and something they may not have even shared with anyone before. They will actually tell you that. They will say things like, I can't believe I'm telling you this. I've never shared it with anyone, not even their family. I'm sure most of you have been in a situation at some point where that's happened. And I want you to think about that time and think about why you, why that time, why you, why did they choose you to share that? How did it make you feel? How do you think it made them feel? What was your frame of mind when it happened? Where was your thinking? Where was the situation? What allowed that to manifest? And then think about how strong was your connection with that person. And think about it beforehand. Now, remember, you probably just met them, or you weren't really close to them. But think about it, how close that connection was during, and how close your connection was after, because you shared this real intimate moment. And it's something that my wife always says she can't believe, you know, there's other mothers from school or people in our circle of life that aren't necessarily close, but I find myself in this situation a lot where people have opened up to me, and hopefully you've experienced the same. And the reason why I genuinely believe I encounter this experience is because I'm authentic, I'm real, and I listen. I genuinely care. And that's why I love this sentiment around being real, so that that's when people will open up to you. So when I talk about being real can change a life, talking about what does it mean to be real and authentic, asking are you okay, and putting it in your own language allows you to be authentic. People read straight away when it's just a throwaway line. It's like, you know, walking into the office, morning, how are you? You're not asking people how they actually are. It's a throwaway line. And half the time you're actually hoping that you don't even get a response, because you probably don't want to sit there and talk and find out how they really are. But when we think about why we struggle to be honest and share how we feel, some of the things that we see and hear or refrain from sharing is because there's a fear of judgment, that they simply won't understand, or they will now treat me and look at me differently. Mental health is something that there is no single cure, and it's hard to treat, and it's hard to understand, and it's not all things are equal. And what do I do? What do I do if I'm in that situation? The best thing you can do is be real, be genuine. People get worried about the perceptions of it, the criticism. I love that we're talking more openly about it now. But even gender, I know as men, we struggle to share our feelings as a whole, being generalist, but we do. We genuinely struggle to share how we feel, especially amongst other blokes. Is it safe? Do I feel safe to speak up? There's biases at play. You know, your unconscious bias is that's developed in your formative years. And we heard a little bit more about that today. And I was really impressed hearing all the different tips, but also getting a better understanding as to how we think, how we operate, how our brains work, and how we engage with friends, family, and society. But these are some of the things that I just wanted to label today to say, well, this is why when you ask, are you okay? You may not necessarily be getting the real answer. And by asking, are you really okay? And creating that environment where you're being genuine yourself and making that person feel like they can share something without the fear of judgment, persecution, or that you have expectations, or that you're going to have different expectations once you've learned something new from them, or not even understanding the context. I know I've struggled to share some of my experience, and I've had first-hand experience around mental health challenges in my family, and what that can do. And I struggled to share it because I don't think anyone really understood. And I think about empathy. Empathy for me only works when it's genuine. Otherwise, they're throwaway lines. So when I'm just going to stop sharing my screen now, bear with me. I can't do that right now. My mouse has stopped working. I don't know if someone over there can stop me sharing the screen while I'm still talking. Sorry, I was saying about empathy. So one of the reasons why I really struggled with not sharing my feelings is because when people try their best, and they may have best intentions, if they don't really understand, and it's the difference between empathy and sympathy, right? I always enjoy talking to people who live in my shoes, and that's easy. But the people I talk to who understand what I'm going through, what I'm feeling, and allow me to feel that, that's when I'm probably going to open up. And I know for people out there in the industry, I have opened up and I have shared some intimate experiences and something that they can relate to. And it may not even be the same, but they understand. So my tip today is of all the things you hear today, of all the things you learn, and I heard one of the speakers mention it today, be true to yourself first, and then you'll be surprised how many opportunities are made available to you where people will share. They will tell you when you ask them, are you okay? How do you feel? It's incredible, the truth, the honesty that you will hear. And that's when you can really make a difference. That's when you can change a life. And even for that day. And it's okay, by the way, to say things are shit. And right now it's about context, right? We talk about how, and we focus on the positives, you know, we're here in my household, we're really fortunate, we're all safe, we've all been vaccinated, we're feeling a lot more positive about there's light at the end of the tunnel. But there's days where it's really, really shit. And in comparison to what's happening in the world, we know it's good, but it's hard to complain. Sometimes we just want to vent. And that's it. That's important to release, to get that poison out, and to have someone not shut us up or put us back in the place of positivity, but to have someone who allows us to be open, to be real, and speak our mind without that fear of persecution, without that fear of judgment, knowing full well that it's really important that we also have the positive mindset as well, not overly negative. So that's basically it from me. I'm going to try and attempt to throw it back to Renee and the team there. Wish I was there. I don't know if you guys can. Oh, there we go. I'm working again. There we go. I got it. Look at that.
Alex, thank you for one of the most real presentations I've ever seen, and so many good tips and in such good alignment to everything that we've heard today. I really hope that you got something out of that, and I can honestly say from my friendship and professional relationship with Alex, he is a man of his word, and everything that he talked about is 100% true about the person that he is, and he couldn't be a better spokesperson to be talking about being real. So thank you, and we definitely wish you were here with us, Alex, as well. Now we're moving into our final session, which is actually a panel session that Peter White is going to facilitate. So what I'd like to do is, Alex, please stay on board, and I'd like to welcome back Ash, who's going to join us, and locally here, I'd like to welcome back Joanna and Nicolette and Peter to facilitate the next session. Thank you.
Thanks, Renee, and yes, you stay. You can't run away for this one. You're a part of it, so we're going to put you on the spotlight as well. And thanks for everyone. Everyone's stayed on, which has been great. So, and thank you to all of you for your presentations. Presentations have been fantastic. So, Ash, thank you. Alex, as always, thank you. The presentations have been absolutely first rate, and sharing stories and that genuineness of what transpires in lives and the journeys that people have been on are also important. So I want to spend a little bit more time talking a little bit more about yourselves. You've been standing up, talking to everybody. Now we're going to drag it out of it. So get ready for it. So you boys down there in video land, you get ready too. I'm going to drill you. So
I hope you can hear me. My camera has stopped working.
Ready to go. Yeah, Alex.
We can see you, Alex.
Can
you see me?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't see myself. My screen's black.
Oh, there's so many places I could go with that. You're just going to walk away. But Alex, we can see you, we can hear you. Same with Ash there, and obviously ladies as well. So we might just start here. I'd like to know just a little bit more about yourselves, actually, before we go too much further. I'm going to start here. So we understand your role in the world of what we've been talking about today. Tell us a little bit more about you. What else do you do? What do you do to relax? Tell us a bit more about your story, interests and hobbies.
I'm really passionate about health and well-being, annoyingly so. So I rule my house with an iron fist. So bedtime, 8:30, got to drink water, no soft drinks, all of that sort of stuff. But it's also because I suffer from anxiety, and I know too that if I don't have those pillars in place, I'm a wreck. So I go to bed early, I try and get a good night's sleep, I do a bit of sport every day, and I have got good mates. And we go to a coffee shop near where I live. I swim with some of them, I run with some of them, and then we talk about our problems, our issues, and it's like group therapy.
Sleep's really important. I've learned a lot about sleep. I never used to. I was fairly ignorant to the impacts. Actually, ladies, I want you to step forward just a little bit. That's it. That's power. Everybody take one step forward. I'll take one back. No, that's right. We'll go to that. But yeah, I learned a lot about sleep, and this is not just a bit of decoration. That's actually full of technology. That's got sensors all inside of it, and it's called Nora, and it monitors my sleep. It monitors a bit of exercise as well, but it monitors my sleep patterns at night. It gives me all the data outputs through an app. So yeah, it's talking a lot about what I should and shouldn't do, and how doing all the wrong things at night, especially late at night, play for a really bad night's sleep. So the data is king, they say, and it certainly plays out. So, yeah. Joanna, tell us a little bit about the Joanna story. You go to some great stuff.
I do. So I live on top of a mountain beside a rainforest. So what I like to do is go get into nature and just go walking. In fact, my idea of a good time is 4 days with a backpack on my back and nothing but a path in front of me. So that's how I like to defrag. But I've also recently planted a veggie garden. Hey. So I'm going out in the morning and I'm looking after my seedlings and I'm getting my hands dirty and earthing myself, which is great because my day goes from woe to go, usually quite late, with lots of really full-on things that come across my plate. And I also have been making sure that I do a nightly unwind meditation. So I think having a routine in the morning, but a routine at night is really, really helpful. And often I'll get in bed, I've got so many things going through my mind, and I need to go through that process of just booting everything down, calming down, so that I can get a good night's rest. So for me, it's about nature, it's about growing things, and in between, it's my animals, spending time with my dogs, and my cats, and yeah, pretty simple living, basically.
I've seen many photos on social media. You're out in the bush, just off wandering these tracks. It's a great thing. And that unwind piece at night time, and part of this aura ring that I wear actually helps you on a more physical understanding of that as well, rather than there's the mental piece and the meditation piece. But understanding that you need to dump technology a couple of hours before you want to go to sleep. Just don't sit there looking at your phone or on your iPad or computer or whatever. You've got to dump the technology out of your head, otherwise it just winds you up. And you need that time to relax, to meditate and unwind before you actually go to bed. And same when you wake up. The first thing you shouldn't do is pick your phone up when you get up, wake up in the morning. That's not the first thing you should do. So, yeah, we shall move on. Renee, We have had some wonderful conversations over the years, Renee. We've been talking about mental health and the different journeys that we've experienced and been on. Tell us a bit more about yours.
Sure. And finishing on what you just said about the best thing to do when you wake up is not to turn on your phone. I think one of the best practices that I've started is a gratitude practice. In the morning, when your eyes are still closed and you're still lying in bed, you can take 30 seconds, you can take 3 minutes, and it's just a practice that you can do for yourself where you think about the things that you are most grateful for, and it can be big things, it can be little things. And in that practice, what I often find that I'm grateful for is my family and my health and my well-being. They're my top two things. Had a bit of a health issue a few years ago. I would have said that I was a really healthy person. I didn't understand the best health and total health and well-being, and a lot of the activities that I was actually pursuing weren't necessarily healthy for me from a stress point of view. So I've completely shifted in the type of exercise that I do, the diet that I have, and how I live my life. And to give an example of that, the other night I was doing a yoga practice at home via, a video, and my nieces called me to FaceTime me from Adelaide, and I haven't seen them for quite some time. They're 10 and a half, 8 and a half, and just turned 3. So I'm missing out on a lot of good stuff with them, but I try to connect with them often. And I was very happy to stop my yoga practice to connect with them and hear about the Sapsaza event and the new calisthenics routine, and my little nephew asking me the same question over and over, which was just, what you doing? What you doing? Because I know how I'm going to feel after that call, and it's just knowing what is the thing that works for you and what sings to your heart, and that's the thing that I take the most joy in.
Kids are funny like that. I get the question, what you have for lunch? And I got to answer it like 10 times. And it's usually the same thing. Very good. Gotta love kids, gotta love kids. So, Ash, over to you, mate. Tell us a bit more about your background.
Well, I could probably tell the boring bit. I live up here down here in regional Victoria. A wife, 2 kids, 2 dogs, 2 cats, and a parrot. There's the quick story of my life.
The parrot's involved.
We'll talk about the parrot another time. So, I guess having operated in the industry since '97, I jumped into finance, entrepreneurship in '97 out of corporate finance, jumped out of prison, jumped out of the frying pan into the fire, so to speak. And I guess like a lot of people, that entered this industry and still do, I was driven by helping people. I love helping people. I love solving their problems. And I think a lot of mortgage brokers can resonate with that. It's probably the primary reason. That and, taking control of our own destiny really drives most people to get into this industry. But I guess what I figured out was after about 4 years of becoming successful and writing a lot of loans, but not really figuring a lot of stuff out, just really being busy, I crashed into a brick wall, emotionally, financially, relationship-wise, and I reckon I came within 24 hours of chucking it all in. And I figured out at that point, or it came to my awareness, that in order to help other people, you really need to help yourself first. My sister, who was an air hostess at the time, told me the number one lesson that they're taught in flight school is give yourself oxygen first. And I took that lesson on and thought you can only help other people to the extent you can help yourself. So that was in 2002, 2003, and then I took all of that lesson, and I guess the last 15, 20 years have really been about, for me, self-mastery and how I can apply those lessons and learnings and mistakes and successes to helping other people.
Excellent, excellent. Alex, my friend.
Hey, how you going?
I've spent much time with and had some really great personal conversations about life and industry and everything that falls in between those cracks. So, buddy, tell us a little bit more about what you've been through. You guys, actually, you've got a bit of a recent journey still to where Ash has come from, but obviously yours was in the lending space and now out on your own, consulting and doing all sorts of wonderful things. But yeah, Alex, give us a little bit more about the story, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Whitey. Well, a little bit about me. I obviously have some challenges with technology. That's only today. It's been working fine. I promise you, I'm really good with it. But I'm married, 4 children, 4 kids, so all aged between 10 and 16, so all very close together. I have a son who's on medication that makes him immunocompromised. So we found COVID quite not just challenging, but a little bit scary on that front, because if he gets COVID, he's screwed. So we have a very different perspective on information or misinformation. And it's interesting hearing today about the way our unconscious minds takes in information. And I completely get why people are so confused. But it's been quite easy for us to make that decision. And I've really enjoyed, it's hard to say I've enjoyed parts of COVID, because as you know, we've traveled a lot in pre-COVID, and that took us away from our family and friends, and I've enjoyed being home for dinner every night. I've enjoyed having breakfast in the morning, seeing them when they wake up, or when I wake up sometimes. And I suppose in my journey through COVID and experiencing this other aspect of life, I made the bold decision to do what I love, and that's talking to people. God knows I love talking. So if I can help, even more so, and hence why I've started my own consulting business, just as we went into an extreme lockdown. I've been really fortunate, really blessed, really humbled by the industry response in people who have reached out wanting help. So that's kept me really, really busy doing stuff I love doing, and that's helping. So, and being real.
I have 2 observations for you. One is the postman has slipped a message under the door from you, behind you. The other is you are anally retentive, my friend. Have a look at that wall behind you. Everything's sectioned off in folders.
OCD. That's self-diagnosed.
And something you both know and love over a long period of time, the industry has left you a little comment. You need to be thankful for the fact you still got hair. So there. Hey, listen, can I stay with you for a sec? That piece that you've taken on in COVID, from moving out of, can I call it a secure job, as secure as any job can be, to working for yourself in the midst of COVID, was one hell of a big ballsy step in my books. That's not an easy gig as a start point. How have you found that for you personally? Forgetting just setting up the business piece, but you as a person, and we talk, you know how we talk. So tell me about how you've gone with it, because it would have been seriously hard, yeah, in my head.
It started off with a real D&M with my wife, because I didn't even know what I was doing, right? Like I've done free consulting before, like as we've all done. Buy me a beer, we'll have a chat. I'll give you my advice and share my experience, but to actually give up an income and have a crack at something I've never done before. Yeah. I had no idea whether I could monetize it or not. All I knew is my conviction was so strong that it was now or never. Was the best time? I don't know. People rang me, and that's where I was really humbled. As soon as people found out, I had various companies and industry colleagues ring me saying, "Alex, what are you doing?" And my genuine response was, "I don't know." Pete, you and I had that conversation, right? So tell me, Alex, what are you doing? I don't know. Here's what I'm good at. Here's what I've done before. And I didn't have my elevator pitch. I still sort of don't. But what I do believe in, looking to partner with people where I can complement their strengths or I can add value. And if that works, you find that out pretty quickly. But I will say this, a lot of the strategies we hear about, a lot of them are aspirational for me. Like all these strategies today, I know I've got to eat healthier. I know I've got to exercise more. I know I've got to do a lot of things. But I give this advice to new parents, people who are about to have their first baby, right? Because everyone's quick to dish out advice. My advice is this: whatever it takes to survive.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes to survive. If you need to watch Ozark, don't shoot me, please. If you need to watch Ozark late at night, watch it. Don't do it every night, maybe. Try and introduce better habits. But I think we all need balance, and we all need, you know, Whitey, we were talking, we've already had numerous conversations about going on those bike rides, right? So my bike will be ready. But we all need, whether it's a bushwalk and getting into nature, or, you know, things that I struggle with during lockdown, it's socialism.
I was going to ask you about that. You're a very social man. We have been overseas together. I've seen you in flight, but also you used to work in a relatively large company to now working on your own. You're now working on your own, yes, with your family around you, but you no longer have that business network necessarily that you've been used to on a normal day-by-day basis. Have you dealt with that?
Yeah, I've got to say I'm still struggling with it a little bit. But where I'm really fortunate is I was getting sick of Zoom last year at work. Now I'm actually enjoying it more because I need that connection. And I still have people who are so over Zoom wanting to go on, I call them audio calls, but phone calls, right? And we go on a walk and we have a chat. But I actually do crave it now because I need that connection. I need that visual. I'll have beers over Zoom regularly because that's as close as I can get to it. So I'm not quite there yet. And I was pleased to hear this plan of Freedom Day coming up on the 18th of October. God knows I will be out. My hairdresser better look out. I need a haircut. Won't quite aim for Stephen Dinte with his collar rash, but who knows? Yeah, so just doing the best with what I've got.
I think a lot of people probably struggle with that loneliness aspect, especially through the whole COVID experience, but also too, the brokers who, or now your experience, who work from home on their own. And Nicola, if I could throw to you, that you've got your data is saying that there's 1 in 4 Australians are lonely.
Yep.
Can you sort of give us some more thoughts on that, strategies? How do we do that? 1 in 4 people are lonely.
It's huge. It is an epidemic that we found off the back of last year and into this year, where people's resilience is low, they're exhausted, and people are lonely. And yeah, look, it's really hard for extroverts, I understand that, who want to get into the workplace and need a hug and not really into the social distancing. I put myself in that category. Alex, obviously you'd be in that category as
He's
well.
a great hugger.
Yeah, I bet
He's a great hugger.
Yeah, just a virtual hug there. But I think what we can do is just off the back of everything today, reaching out to people, not just today, but every day of the year. And if you know someone in your neighbourhood, just a random act of kindness, maybe a little flower in their letterbox, a handwritten note, make a meal, but reach out to people, because the flow and effect is huge. If you've ever been on the receiving end of something small and kind, just lifts your spirits.
That's very true. It's very true. And there's not enough of it.
Yeah, it's not enough.
Not enough. That's not excellent. So, Joanna, tell me more about your, if I can say, your lifestyle experience. You're getting out in nature, going on bushwalks. You're also very, I'm going to say poetic. That may not necessarily be the right thing. You've got some great words of wisdom you put out in the marketplace. Can you tell us just a little bit more about that, but also how that impacts your life and your approach to things?
Okay. So there's probably a bit of a story about that.
Yeah.
So a few years ago, Pete and I separated, and I realised that I actually had fear of being alone. And, you know, we all have fears, different types of fears, some small, some big. And, you know, I was terrified to be on my own. So after thinking it through, one day I got this great idea that I was going to go by myself and go on a 4-day walk in the bush alone. Because sometimes you just got to call the fear out for what it is, and you just got to go and meet it. And so that's what I did. I packed a backpack. I went to the three cradle walk down in Tasmania, 3Ks. Absolutely incredible place if you ever get to go. And I remember, it's a kind of a funny story, I had this huge backpack on and I wasn't particularly fit and I had no idea what I was doing, and I got in the minibus and the driver turned around and they said, "You're the only one going out today." And I just went, what have I done? So I ended up on this boat, and you get to the edge of the boat and you have to jump off the boat onto land because you're on a different peninsula and walk off by yourself. So that's what I did. And it was the most incredible, profound experience of my life. I got so many insights into myself. I forgave so many things on that walk. I tell you what, when you're alone out in the bush. And finally, for the first time in my life, on day 3 after being to the cave, I realized for the first time ever in my life that I was totally at peace and I was not afraid to be alone. And so that was a really big lesson to me, to realize that even though sometimes it is just scary, you know, like you've got that terror inside and you're really unsure what to do, if there's something, a fear that's holding you back, sometimes you've just got to go and grab it, you've got to hug it, you've got to meet it, and you've got to kiss it goodbye. And so that's now pretty much my attitude with everything that I do. You know, I'm not perfect and I've got still things that I'm working on, but I'm a lot more open to going to those places that are difficult for me. And I realize that when you go through that journey, that's where you grow, and that these challenges that you face are where you find the best parts of yourself. And so there is always a golden lining on the other side of any story, particularly if it's challenging. And you know, one of the things that I love to do is share what's helped me in my life, because that gives me a lot of joy to think that I might be helping others too, because at the end of the day, it really is about who you are and what you do in the world and who you touch along the way. And so that's very much the story about me. So yeah, so I have a busy life at Motivators. I also spend most nights and weekends, you know, running Successful Woman and helping women with their confidence and all sorts of things. And so, you know, it's an exciting time in my life as I grow and also as I can help other people too. So that's probably the story I would share with you about that, Pete.
Thanks. That's lovely. And just so everybody aware, none of these people know the questions I'm going to throw at them. It wasn't, I must admit, I'm really touched by that, to be honest with you. That's really lovely. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I think that loneliness piece, I'll take a second just to get my composure on this, is something that I struggle with. Most of you won't realise, and now I'm going to share something. Here we go. I've been married 4 times, right? I'll blame myself for the first 3 marriages, but I've always hated being on my own. And that was one of my greatest fears. It still is today. Unfortunately, for the last 11 years, I've been with the most wonderful woman. But that loneliness aspect is something that can be really difficult to deal with. I know it's been extraordinarily difficult for me. And yes, I've screwed up multiple times, but we'll leave that one for another time. I come to you in a moment, but I'm going to go to Ash. Ash, tell me, mate, what are the most common things brokers are coming to you about? You get a lot of people come and talk to you for many different reasons. What are you seeing as that most common things? Change the pace of the
that's a really big question, and I'm really enjoying hearing the stories, by the way. And I think I'm the opposite of you, Pete. I think I prefer being on my own too much. So that's my wife keeps telling me, hidden away in my home office. So yeah, obviously I've talked to brokers a lot. Obviously I coach brokers. We've got 70 or 80 broker clients, and obviously having operated in the industry pretty much my whole life, you know, the common themes haven't really changed, and that is amongst, you know, all of the things that I could be doing, all the paths I could be following, all the choices I could be making, you know, what is the correct path to be following? You know, that's probably the most common question, that if I sit down with a broker and I ask them, you know, what's the number one thing that I could potentially help you with? It's pretty much the same. It's like, what is the correct thing that I should be doing? Like, I've got all the knowledge, I've got all the ideas, I know how to be a good broker, I've got all these other tools and bits and pieces, but about, how to make the choice to ignore certain things and stick with certain things is probably the biggest challenge I think brokers face. And it is a very lonely industry. Despite helping people and communicating with people, it can be very isolating. And most of the brokers that I speak to, the thing they value the most is having a community around them and having someone to talk to that understands their journey. And I think from my perspective, I won't sort of go too far back into my story because we could be here for hours, but I've probably stepped on every landmine you could probably step on in this industry over 25 years. I've made every mistake. I tried everything and hopefully figured a few things out along the way. So brokers always want to know, well, what did you do? How did you deal with this? What direction did you go when you were hit with this challenge? How did you get to sleep at night? Like, I reckon I went 3 years barely sleeping at night back in the early 2000s. It was horrendous. Up at 2 o'clock every night, writing up loans and then getting up at 5:30 in the morning. You can't live like that, but there's no one there to tell me a better way to do it. So I had to crash into a few brick walls, fall down a few mine shafts, so to speak, and figure it out myself. So that's the most common question, Pete, that I get is, well, what's the path to follow to get to my goal, which is for most mortgage brokers is a business that sort of works for them, not the other way around. That's a big challenge for brokers, is to transition from being held captive by what they do to being back in love with what they do.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I'll come back to you a bit more on that in a minute, but Renee, I'm going to jump across to you and say, you've done sort of an Alex thing, but changing jobs. So you've left Suncorp, you've gone to Next Gen, you've done that in the middle of COVID, always interesting step. I know we took on a state manager in Western Australia the very day COVID shut the country down back in March last year. Poor bugger spent his first 12 months with us, locked in his home in Perth. Anyhow, we persevered on. So how did you go there? Were there things playing on your mind from a mental health point of view? Because you and I have shared our conversations in the past around mental health. So how did it go for you?
Happy to share. So yes, I joined Next Gen in middle of June, and what that meant was I got to have 9 days in the office meeting new people. But we're also, I think, even though we're in lockdown now, at that time, most organisations were running with 30 to 50% of people in the office at any one time. We were still trying to lift that trajectory. So I didn't get to physically meet everybody, but I am so glad I did those 9 days, because once lockdown hit, that meant from then on I was working from home in a new organisation with new people. And what I came from was 7 years in an organisation where I pretty much knew how to cope, manage, answer anything. And if I didn't have the answer, I knew who to go to. So it was quite a confronting thing for me. I knew that it was going to happen, but to actually have it hit, as well as not to have physical resources around you to call on, was more challenging than I thought it was going to be. The good thing is that because of the work that I've chosen to do in terms of being an advocate for mental health over the last couple of years, and I'm also studying a diploma in wellbeing and positive psychology, I could recognise the signs, even though I didn't necessarily want to admit them. And whilst I was having an argument with myself about what I did or didn't need, I could almost clinically go, right, I am aware that I'm not moving as much as I should be. I know that I'm not connecting with my friends because I'm not located where they are. And I set up then different activities to make sure that I could bridge that gap as quickly as I could. I could notice that I was reacting poorly in some arguments or discussions. And these were the signs for me. Fortunately, Next Gen as an employer, and one of the reasons I chose to work for them is they are a family organisation, and from a wellness perspective, they have a great program, and as part of their support of COVID and to support their employees, they've actually initiated wellness leave, which is 3 days at this stage added on to any other leave, and there's no explanation required to take the leave, and it will continue for as long as the lockdown actually continues. So to have that support as well has been extraordinary.
Yeah, That's amazing. There's something I didn't know. Excellent. Yeah. I'm going to have a whole lot of staff asking for that now. Right.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. It's all good. We're up for it. It's fine. Okay, I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to come back to each of you with a final tip. So get ready. But I'm going to start with Nicolette. Nicolette, give us some recharge tips. I know you've got some somewhere. In a very short little piece so we can finish off. What are your recharge tips?
Find like-minded people who drag you up and hang out with them. And if you can't hang out, virtually connecting. I think there's a saying, you're similar to the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Hang out with 5 cool people aside, or maybe it's your family members who help bring you up, who are going to be honest with you, who are there to pick you up, and just not always showing highlight reels, but are there, they're authentic mates.
Nice, love that. Joanna, just a tip, words of wisdom. I know you're full of words of wisdom. You've got a last minute piece of gold for us.
Get yourself a mentor is what I would say to everyone. Get yourself someone that's where you want to be, whether it be in work or health or investing or whatever it is you're interested in doing. Go out and find somebody that's got the results that you're looking for and learn from them and enjoy the journey. That is what I would say to everybody.
Enjoy the journey. And the journey is all important. I do talk about this in my presentations as well, that it's not necessarily a straight path. It might go this way, it might go that way, but keep on the journey that you're on and let it be what it is and hold on to those that can take you there. Right?
My tip is about moving energy. So whether that's physically getting up and moving, another one that is absolutely awesome is being able to have a laugh. It's a very dark world in some ways at the moment, and you sort of feel a little bit guilty finding enjoyment, but what that does is it shifts energy, whether it's a TikTok video, and I'm very interested to see if there's going to be a hug dance move, because I think that should be one
I think
for today.
Let's start one.
Yeah, exactly. But moving energy in some way, and that laughter, because laughter connects.
Lovely, love it, love it. Ash, what's your tip? What's your piece of gold? It might be the answer to the commonly asked question. I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of great tips actually, and I firstly want to agree with Joe. I get asked a lot, what would I do differently if I had my time again in this industry? And my answer is always the same. I only wish that I had been around for me 25 years ago. So get somebody in your corner to guide you on your journey. Is a mentor, a coach, a confidant. That's my number one tip. But separately to that, I spend 30 to 40 minutes every day by myself exercising. I go for a walk. I just get lost in my own thoughts. I think a lot of people find it hard to be in their own thoughts and keep themselves busy. And a lot of people avoid that because they don't want to go too deeply into their thoughts. They might be worried about what they might find. For me, that's the most important part of my day, is getting out and going for a walk and just spending some time on my own, thinking through my thoughts. And I'll quickly add that I learnt this from our old mate John Simon from Aussie Home Loans. I asked him a long time ago, Pete, when I had him up in Ballarat in the late 90s, I asked him what's his number one tip for success, and I had no idea what he was going to say, and his answer floored me then, and I still resonates now, and that is, I spend 30% of my time just thinking on my own, thinking about myself, thinking about my family, and thinking about what are the right decisions to make. And it's impossible to do that if you don't allow space in your day to be just on your own.
Actually, a very, very good point. Warren Buffett actually says exactly the same thing, your principle about clearing space in your day to not do anything else, just to think, and to think clearly and to relax with your thoughts. Successful people with very successful tips. Thank you, my friend. Alex, deliberately left to last. You're a man full of thoughts and wisdom. What is your tip, my friend?
I definitely agree with surrounding yourself with awesome people, real people, genuine people, people who are going to tell you how it is, people who are going to be brave enough to tell you what you're doing wrong, and you trust them implicitly. So maybe more than one mentor would be my recommendation. Not official mentor capacity, but people who are going to complement your weaknesses. I've got a close friend who's highly introverted, who brings me down a peg or two, and I need that because I'm highly extroverted. So that is nice. I've got people who are analytical, people who are emotional, and you know, sometimes I just want to dumb things down. I don't want an intellectual conversation, and I've got some of those friends too. But they're all real. They're all genuine, and I've got their backs. They've got mine. So, yeah.
Thank you, my friend. And I guess that's the important piece to wrap up on, is that it's about real conversations. It's real people, real mentoring, coaching, whatever you want to call it, but people you can be close to be real with. And that's why today with Are You Okay? It's asking, are you really okay? It's getting rid of the barrier, and it's chucking the tie off, and not necessarily being in a suit or anything like that. It's being you, being real, being genuine with each other, and more importantly, with yourself. Very important. All right, thank you very much. Thank you to all our speakers. They've been wonderful. Love the conversations. Love you joining us for this Q&A session. Boys, thanks so much. Be well, be safe, and we'll see you soon. And I will hand back to our
likewise.
See you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Peter, and what a great conversation. Hopefully, out of the course of today and those conversations, you've picked up something that is an insight, a connection, or just something that you can relate to as an experience that you might be sharing. Before we close out today, it would be remiss of us not to mention that tomorrow is actually World Suicide Prevention Day. What does that mean? It's an International Awareness Day observed on the 10th of September to provide a focus for commitment and action to prevent suicide. So if today has struck anything with you, please know that there's support services available. But if you'd like to learn more about that, there is loads of information on government websites and some events that are occurring tomorrow. So we'd like to say thank you for joining us today, for taking the time, for listening, for the amazing chat and questions that we've seen. Thank you very much. We'd like to thank the sponsors, so Suncorp and Assure, NextGen.net, Mortgage Easy, the Mindset Fit Method, Are You OK, and Beyond Blue, and also all of our presenters and panellists. I would also like to call out a very big thanks to the Fbaa events team. Mariah and May have been working behind the scenes to be able to pull this event together, and it has been extraordinary. There'll be a follow-up email coming out to you with a short survey, and it's really important that we hear, the Fbaa hears from you around what events would you like to see, how did you find today, and what can we deliver in future. It will also have your CPD code with today's 3.5 points allocated. You can also access this event once the recording's up on the Fbaa YouTube channel, and you can share that with others if you think that there's benefit in the information that was covered in the content of today. Don't forget to download the digital brochure, and also within that there's the details about the Suncorp and Assure program that's available for you and your family. So some terrific support and resources are available there for you. We'd like to say thank you for spending the time with us, for being open and for sharing your thoughts, and I hope you've taken some of the challenge that speakers provided today. As we close out, I would like to actually close it on behalf of the Fbaa and all of the presenters today with a message to you, which is part of a loving kindness meditation. There's different ways that you can do this, but from us to all of you at home, may you be safe, may you be healthy, may you live with ease and happiness, and may you be free from pain. That is our wish to all of you today. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.